Welcome back, everybody. This is Mark 156 of Geeks Chasing Squirrels Across the Multiverse. I am in a room filled with heroes, my homeboys, my homeboys and homegirls, my co-hosts, my friends, Ross and Sarah. But I'm going to tell you right now, I got my Galaxy Buds Pro 2, which is a horrible name, in the mail today. And I have tried everything. I'm telling y'all, everything, AirPods, Beats, every kind of earbud you can try, because I listen to a lot of audio all day long driving. These things are phenomenal. Absolutely fantastic. I'm not getting paid for this, but I would recommend go spend the money, get those Galaxy Buds Pro 2. They're amazing. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, what's up, Sarah? How you doing?
I'm doing well.
I'm telling you,
glad
I
you're
wish I could
good
wear them
mood,
right now.
Greg.
I really do. I watched the last few shows on my phone just so I could use the earbuds because they were so phenomenal. Like they're amazing. I'll tweet about it later, I'm sure. So, Ross, what's up?
I appreciate headphones quite a bit more than the average person. Not only that, I'm going to tell you right now, listening to Andor while watching it through headphones, so much better. Mm-hmm. The way that music hits, all those synth lines, and I'll talk about it when we talk about the show, but I'm going to tell you, it amplifies the living hell out of it for me.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I think that honestly, I want to see if I can hook my headphones up to my TV, because it is better. I wish I could do it to my computer, but I'm not that smart, and I have to buy an adapter and all that crap. But like, it feels so much better to hear everything in your ear when you're wearing, because the ANC, the noise cancellation on these things at least is absolutely amazing. I mean, amazing. I couldn't hear the faucet running beside me when I was washing my hands while I'm listening to the show, and I'm like, holy shit, that's crazy. You know?
Not only that, with everything that I listen to, Apple does that spatial audio now, and that kicks everything's ass. I mean, listening to something in spatial audio, because it's almost like surround sound completely for your whole entire head. So,
and I will say, I always defend Android Galaxy Notes, because that's what I am, and that's what I like to work with. Because whether you like to admit it or not, like the Galaxy Note or whatever Galaxy series they have out, and the Apple are the hands down best in the market. And I don't want to talk trash about Apple, because my wife and my kids have Apple stuff, and I've used AirPods before. They're fantastic. I think beyond what I just got with these Buds Pro 2, if that's the thing, Buds Pro 2, they're probably the next best thing. But man, these things are amazing, like absolutely amazing. I'm sorry I'm just wasting so much time talking about them, but I'm just so amazed.
Right off
I got home and I was so excited. I was like, yes, I got them. I'm going to watch some stuff on them. Like, it's amazing. So, anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Yes. We got a couple finales. We got no premieres. Actually, we do have a premiere. A couple finales and 2 show premieres, I guess you could call it. Like, kind of 2 shows. Anyway.
Well, but we 3, I mean, Prodigy came back, so
that's true.
Really watching that.
That's true. Back. Well, we also have some news. You want to dive into some news first, man? And we'll go from there.
We want to talk about first. Which area do you want to go to first? There's a little bit of everything. We haven't talked about anything over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, you started off. I'm good.
Star Wars is going to have a movie. At some point, David Lindelof is doing a thing. So good for him. The running joke has been, once again, he's picking up after J.J. Abrams. So he's got a movie coming out. The director is someone who did at least 2 episodes, I think, of Ms. Marvel. I'm not a butcher by trade, so I'm not going to say her name. The whole premise of the thing is supposed to take place after The Rise of Skywalker. So there's that. Liam Neeson is actually, this is not really Star Wars, but if you're a Naked Gun fan, he's going to play the next version of Frank Dresden.
I heard about that.
So,
that's an interesting choice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he can pull it off. He's a great actor, but it's not the first person I would have thought of.
Yeah, is it still going to have like the same feels? Like, that kind of that.
How can it?
Type. I mean, it's.
I don't see how it can. So I thought, like you said, it was an interesting choice, and I'm like, oh well, that's bold. I think is the best 4-letter word I can use to describe it right off the bat. Don't really have any Star Wars news other than the fact that like Prodigy came back. MCU Vision's getting his own show. Surprise, surprise! I didn't really see that one coming. I don't know how they're going to play with that. So that everyone knows by now that Harrison Ford is going to be playing Thunderbolt Ross. So interesting choice on that one too. I just hope he's not so Harrison Fordy, you know? I don't want him to be so pissed off and like monotone. I want him to be. I know that Ross wasn't exactly like a major. Yeah, yeah, perfect. But I'm interested to see how this works out. Beyond that, we're on the cusp of Titans and Lord knows when Doom Patrol, and all your streaming services are about to have to pay for if you don't want to, or pay more for, I guess, if you don't want the ad free, because apparently Disney Plus is going to do it, and Apple is going to do it, and Netflix, I think, is about to start. Netflix is about to start charging you per profile.
Oh.
Don't know if you know about that.
That's gross. I don't like that. Look, I don't mind paying for ads. I grew up in the commercial era.
Yeah.
You know, like commercials are normal for me. Like that's a chance to go take a bathroom break, grab a snack. Like I don't care about that. But paying per profile, I guess everybody's working off one profile in my house. If that's the way it is, which
so that's
you know?
the bad thing.
Yeah.
They're trying to crack down on the password sharing. So what it looks like is they're going to be charging about $2.99 a profile.
But that won't stop it. Like that won't stop profile sharing. It's going to go down to exactly what I said. Like honestly, is it easier for you to have it free where you have to share a profile with somebody and see what they watch too as well as what you watch, or pay the $2.99 a month for having your extra profile? It's going to be easier just to not pay the money. That's what I'm saying. It's not cracking it down. There's no way to stop this. Like it doesn't happen.
Make it work.
Like,
there's no good solution.
No.
I mean, they're doing what they do with shows. They're throwing it at the wall. That's all that they're doing here.
No, you're right. You're right.
So beyond that, the next biggest news, I mean, the biggest news of the week is the DC news. So
you talking about the big gun?
You got big gun and you got the big gun. So
the big gun. Yeah.
You know, it's about whichever one you want to talk about first. You know, Henry Cavill came out with his little was he on Twitter or was that Instagram? Whatever he was on.
Instagram.
It's some form of social media.
It came out with.
Don't worry. When I showed you guys that, Brian had already come running in here. He's like, "Did you see this? See this?"
Yeah.
I'm like, because he's like, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So he's back. You know, we're gonna see what transpires with this new empire that they're giving James Gunn and is it Peter Safran? I think is the other guy's name.
Sounds right.
One's going to be the creative guy, and the other one's going to be the logistical guy. And apparently, they're reporting directly to the CEO of Discovery. So I don't know how that's going to work, but my first thought right off the bat was, how are they going to do this without their hands tied? They seem to be putting those two in a position to where they're going to do it without their hands being tied. But I'm not quite sure how all that's going to work out.
No, your hands are tied. Hands down, your hands are tied. When you cast Henry Cavill as your Superman, your hands are tied. Do you know why? Because we've already had a fantastic fucking Superman from Henry Cavill before. So you can't just cast that character and completely change the tone of the character and get away with it. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they want to shift into a different mode with Henry Cavill and Superman into this universe as character progression, then okay, I'm cool with that. But I don't, and I don't want to say this because it sounds bad. Mm-hmm. I want to say it. I don't want to see him Daredevil it. I don't want to see him Daredevil it. Like, to be really honest with you, I don't want to see them cast the same character and then completely change the way they act and portray themselves. You know, not saying that I don't like Charlie Cox's Daredevil in She-Hulk or that, it's terrible, but I just don't want to see that. Like, this is what I see as the character. Okay, give me a few movies or shows with this character and I can change my mindset and get into it. It's fine. But just give me what I liked before. Why reinvent the wheel? Why change what's already good?
Let's live in this world that's already been created. Let's live in this world.
Right. And they can't recreate the entire Zack Snyder universe. And I get that. But you can still, if you're going to have the same actor play the same character, you need to at least run along the same tagline, or at least the same track they were going on. You know, you can veer off, you can have your liberties and do what you want, but I feel like if you completely change Henry Cavill as Superman, it completely defeats the purpose of hiring Henry Cavill as Superman. You know, I mean, the point of bringing him back was that he was so good in Man of Steel, and you know, in the movies after that, of course. But that's the reason why you bring him back. People loved him as Superman because of that, not just the look, the tone, the way he was. I don't care what people say. Like, there's a reason why that movie made so much money, and that movie is still to this day so controversial. And you brought Henry Cavill back. I think people hate this movie just to be heard. Sometimes, to be truly honest with you, and maybe I hate things.
Why would people do that?
Yeah, maybe I do that with things sometimes too. I'm just saying. I just feel like if you bring Henry Cavill in and then you completely reboot the character, you're doing an injustice to what could be done in this movie series or this universe. You know.
No, let's relish in the fact that we're having this conversation.
Yes.
We're having a conversation that there, you know, when people talk about comic book movie fatigue and everything else, like we're now at a point to where the lines of division that used to be so clear between the things that we liked and the new things that kept coming out being better are blurring. You know, the multiverse was its own take on how you could bring in characters, you know, Professor X contractually, you bring in Reed Richards, who knows what's going to happen with that character, actor change or not. We know that eventually they're going to have to change Xavier. So, you know, they're just playing with your emotions at that point.
Right.
What are they going to do with DC with all of this? I like clear division. I like separating lines. I like all the ducks in the row.
You like to be organized. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that they're they're goofing with it. And I'm not saying that I'm against it because look, Henry Cavill, I've said it before, and no matter how negatively it was portrayed on She-Hulk, I mean, the man is a specimen. He is an actor who kicks ass, and not only that, he looks and breathes Clark Kent Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's phenomenal. To turn around and find someone else, all you're going to get is comparison from day one once an actor is actually named.
Yeah.
Problem is, what do you do with the universe that's falling to pieces? You know, it doesn't matter if you're MCU multiverse or you flashpoint it in DC, whatever the case may be, with all these options they have, they're doing it so many different ways, and you're not going to get the full storyline that you're going to get in like comic books. You know, like at the end of an arc, so many actual pages and books, you're not going to, you know, jump to the next thing. You know, we're seeing it with the carryover of like Captain America, where, you know, now the rumors are Green Lantern is about to see a, you know, reprisal. I don't know what all these things are going to have for the future, but they're doing it. We can't stop them, and all we're going to do is sit and talk about it. So.
Right. Sarah, you got any thoughts?
I really wish my husband would get in on this conversation.
I do too.
He has
Tell him
been
to come
more
on.
excited about this because I'm telling you, just standing in the kitchen, I want to say it was the other day. He's like, "Did you hear about this? Did you hear about this?" Because apparently he stumbled across something. Now I don't know. I guess with the filming of that particular scene in Black Adam, about that they brought all the suits in. They had all the suits ready for him, and he chose the Man of Steel suit. That's the suit that he chose.
So beautiful.
I mean, he had all the suits to choose from, and that's the one he chose. And I'm like, no, I haven't heard about that, but thank you for sharing. So I mean, he's like, I'm like, so he's
you can't put him in the black suit. You can't do it. Not next to Black Adam.
No, but I mean, it's just the fact that like I said, the Man of Steel, that is, I think that's what all grabbed us, you know, regardless of everything else, because
it's the best part of the movie. Yeah.
I mean, because that's Brian's favorite movie too. I mean, he'll sit there and, you know, even now to this day, we still talk about it just randomly. So, you know, just, yeah, it's hilarious to me. I mean, I love it. I love it. Cause I'm like, he gets so animated. He's like, did you see this? I'm like, no, but tell me.
Yeah. They shot that scene like a little over 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know it was so close.
I'm sure it was an easy scene. You know, it was after The Rock convinced him to do it. The Rock convinced him to do it. So
I mean, I don't think there was probably too much
power.
convincing, but you got to look at it with Warner Bros.
No,
I mean,
it took a lot of convincing because people have been raving it for years. to bring him back. You know,
it's. I guess the stars finally aligned,
yes,
so to
that's
speak.
exactly what it was. Exactly what it was. Well, you know, I feel like the DC universe and Warner Brothers Studios is very similar to the Carolina Panthers,
Oh, geez.
and they had a really good thing going.
Mhm.
And they brought new ownership in that felt like it needed to change everything. And it did. And it screwed everything
Can't
up.
change the
And it's
culture.
driven into the ground. And it realized after a few years, hey, maybe we need to stick with what we had. And guess
Listen
what?
to the fans.
We still have Gal Gadot
know.
as Wonder Woman. We still have Jason Momoa as Aquaman. We
Mhm.
still have Henry Cavill as Superman. And you know what? Even after the amazing hit of the Batman comes out with what's his name? The sparkly bat. Robert Pattinson. I'm sorry, I'm not saying that
I love
offensively.
it.
I just
No,
couldn't remember.
I love it.
Couldn't remember his name. I'm not saying he did a great job.
Sparkle Bat.
Robert Pattinson. We still have Ben Affleck coming back to play Batman. And you know what? If Ezra Miller wasn't such a
Is that a thing?
dumbass and moron, he would probably still be playing the Flash. Okay,
Is Batfleck coming back?
he's coming back for at least one movie, at least one scene, and I can almost guarantee you, I'm saying it right now because I said it with Henry Cavill, he'll be back again.
Ron was telling me that I don't know. Now I don't know where he got his info from, but it's 3 movies.
Now, if that's the case,
I will have to find
that's
out
new
from
to
him
me,
where he
but
found that. But
I'm
he
awesome with that.
he did
Yeah.
say something that he came across that it's 3 movies that Cavill has signed on to.
Oh, Cavill. Okay, I thought you were saying
Yeah.
about Affleck. Okay,
Mm-mm.
Cavill, I believe, because I believe we're going to get Cavill in at least
Like a Black Adam
one
2,
cameo and
Man of
a
Steel 2,
solo
and
movie. Yeah.
some kind of Justice League 2, I think. I think that's what he was saying. But like I said, don't hold
They
me
got a
to
long way to go for a Justice League too. Just
But
But
how
it
do
might
we
be down the
feel-
road. I mean, I'm not saying right
Yes.
off the
Oh, yeah.
bat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's still
How
a lot
do we feel
of
about Gunn? No one's talking about Gunn here. How do
You're
we
right.
feel about Gunn?
You're right. Listen,
Because Gunn's the new head coach in your little scenario.
a little
I
team.
don't think that Gunn, his tone is the best tone to direct every DC movie. Now, that being said, him being in charge doesn't mean he's going to direct every movie.
It already said in the agreement that he's not.
Right. So with that
He's only
knowledge,
supposed to be doing like 3 movies.
right. With that knowledge, I believe he's smart enough and creative enough to really stir up this universe and have a good time. And like put out some really good product. If they pick a plan, Ross, like you've been saying, pick a plan and go with it. And I believe he's capable of that. Like when I first heard the news, all I could think about was, great, every DC movie is going to be a comedy. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, well, he's not directing everything. And he is a very good director. Like the movies that he's made, I've liked. They've not been my favorite movies, but he definitely has a tone. He has a feel. Like you can feel this is a James Gunn movie, you know? But I feel like he's smart enough to steer this ship. I think that if you put him in charge and you give him a chance and you follow his lead, we may have something really good here.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically going to be the continuity master at this. I mean, that's pretty much what it's all going to fall back to.
And I know that we need that back.
Yeah, his lore and his ability to dig through everything in the background to search for good stories. That's all him. Has he made directing decisions that everyone agrees with? Yes, but I mean, we turn around and we talked about Peacemaker. When he did Suicide Squad, it wasn't all that big of a deal. And like I said, the writing was on the wall with Gunn and DC. It's been there. Like he was a full-fledged part of the last Harley Quinn season. He was in like 4 episodes of the show, and it's an animated show. He's digging into every little bit of it, and you can see him in the background playing with all the DC stuff. I mean, Marvel firing him even before he actually brought him back may be the best decision they ever did for DC. And I'd be truly amazed if they hand DC such a nuclear weapon and let this thing just pop off.
Right.
Because I want to see it. I think he can do it. If all that he truly has to do is sit back and watch and follow and put the pieces together and say yes and no and what's okay and what's not, then so be it.
Yeah. Well, I think you need a guy who's a puppet master. Like you need a guy who's not necessarily making all the decisions on every creative design and everything you're doing, but like somebody that says, these are the stories we're following, this is the direction we're going, work with what you have, get back to me, and let's make sure that everything ties in together. A foggy or a foggy, basically.
Get a plan
it's what you
together.
need. Yes.
Just get a plan together.
I hate to
and
put
then
it
you
like
can
that,
get
but yes.
people in place to make it happen.
100%.
And then get the guy from Ant-Man to describe it to me because I want it to be real fun.
Yes.
Okay, so check it out. It's like this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Showtime.
I'm excited for what's going forward just because I want to see some direction.
Yeah.
What I've seen from DC, their last few things they've put out, I've been happy with, and I like the direction they're going forward. I just want to see some kind of continuity, like you said, in what they're doing. Yep. Like it's gotta make sense.
Make me a believer. That's what I want.
Well, any more news?
I mean, I guess if you're a Community fan, you're going to get a Community movie. That's about it. I'm a Community fan.
I'm a
Greg,
Community
you
fan.
like Joel McHale, so.
Well, I like Community. Yeah, I like Joel McHale. Yeah, and I like Community. Actually, that's the reason why I watched Community was because of Joel McHale. But it's a really good show. So that'd be awesome to see a movie. I'm down.
I know there's more stuff, but I gotta be honest with you. Past few weeks we've done nothing but watch a shit ton of content. So every time I get news and it stacks up, I'm like, well, I'm just going to delete all of this because we're not going to come back to that for like a month.
Well, we're going to have to go news heavy soon because we had 2 finales last week, 2 finales this week. We're going to run out of content for at least a couple weeks, of stuff to talk about. So, yeah, I say that there's never enough content to run out of. So, or never not enough content to run out. That's what I should say.
We'll figure something out.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, y'all want to go ahead and hop into? We're waiting on talk about House of the Dragon with Cody when he gets on. Look, they were on fire on the free for all.
Oh, were they?
Like I was on there before we got on the show, not on there, but like in the chat room, and they were on fire in the free for all. So he may be a
crazy couple of weeks, dude. I mean, it's been.
Look, if you're a Panthers fan, if we win on Sunday, we lead the division. We are number one in the division. If the season ended today, we would be in the playoffs. It's nuts.
And that's why I can't get in that chat room, man, because everyone gets doom and gloom and real one-sided. And I'm just like, everyone just needs to sit back. I mean,
see, that's the thing about it. That's the thing about it, because now it's been just so doom and gloom for the past 3 seasons. And now it's finally.
I know everyone looks so happy talking.
And I'm just like, okay, I'm still gonna sit there and watch it. I mean, it's like I said, I think I tweeted this or something. I said, the good, the bad, and now it's the ugly. Well, you got to hit rock bottom. Maybe it's time to, come up, let the cream rise. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But there's still a lot of decisions that need to be made because this is not 100%. But, everybody's saying, oh, it's a young team. They'll come into. Okay, fine. I'm just glad you finally have somebody in there that are using the pieces that we have and put them in the right spots. And stop and just get out of your own way. That's been the whole problem. Just get out of your own way.
Because we love trading for players we never use. Let's trade for a player and not start him.
And I mean, it's just like Foreman. Where the hell has he been?
Oh, I love this turn to a Panthers podcast. Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
That's what I was going to say. The videos where people look like they're about to fall down and smash like their ass on something, and then all of a sudden they get real lucky and they're like, oh, almost. That's the Carolina Panthers right now.
There you go.
And I mean, and hey, it's like I can be one of the biggest naysayers. It's like when I have somebody talking about Carolina, they're like, oh, I said, hold on. I promise you cannot critique any worse that I have, and it's my own team. So, I mean, anytime, prove me wrong. Go right ahead, because I'm like, at the beginning of the season, you feel like you're just beating your head against the wall. You're like, nothing's going to change. And now there's something changing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you're like, just get that 4-letter word, hope. That's what always gets us.
Yeah, or the S, the 1-letter S works too. Look, I'll go ahead and tell you right now, being a part of that team, the C3 Panthers podcast, on Sundays, that show is full emotion. That show is immediately after the game ends, okay? Tuesday is logic. Yeah. Sunday is emotion.
You get kind of calm down a little bit so you can
that's
talk
right.
about it.
And I will say, while we're talking C3 Panthers podcast, I am putting out a promotion to everybody out there on the November 10th, the Atlanta game, Atlanta, Carolina, Thursday night. Vintage Sofa Bar, downtown Winston-Salem on Trade Street. I've already got a great response. There's going to be a lot of people there, I think. A C3 Panthers get together. I'm going to call it the C336 party. So anybody in the 336 area that wants to travel, come check it out. November 10th, the Thursday night game. Vintage Sofa Bar, downtown Winston-Salem. It's going to be fun.
Dude, I would say be there, but damn it, I have like appointments. I got to be in Greenville that night. I'm like, ugh. It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
All right. Well, y'all want to go ahead and get in some shows?
Do it.
Okay. I guess we can go and start with Lower Decks. We had the finale of that this week. We'll talk that one before Cody gets on here. Look, I had every show I watched this week was amazing. Like every show, I could not believe. And honestly, I think the finale of Lower Decks was the best finale I've seen of a show in a long time. Ooh. Like there was 2 finales last week. There was finale of House of the Dragon this week, which is great. But I think the finale of Lower Decks was the best one I've seen. Like it was absolutely amazing.
Trek. It was very Star Trek.
It was the last one I watched, and I know that whenever we were talking before, like Sarah had put in the chat, like Lower Decks finale, like thumbs up, and I was like, cool, I can't wait to watch it. And then when I watched it, I was like, holy shit, this was really, really good. So Sarah, get us going. You're my Star Trek girl. What's up?
Oh, this one now, because we always talk about with Lower Decks, it's not really a storyline. Mm-hmm. This season actually followed a storyline. There was the storyline.
Yes.
So you had Captain Freeman, with her, like the end of last season, and then coming into this one, and it was just always, of course everything is around Freeman and the Cerritos and whatnot, but this one was just really, really cool because, like with the Texas class ship, it reminded me a lot of. I'm probably gonna kick myself because right now it was the third Kelvin movie to where you had that prototype ship that came in.
Second one. That was
it the second one?
Yeah,
that was the one with Khan. Yeah, Into Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had that prototype ship that's supposed to be like this dreadnought type thing where it's like the best or whatever. But that kind of reminded me a little bit because it's supposed to be like better than what you already had because you had the California class. They're like these little itty bitty ships, and it's like they're just so like it's like a Toyota versus a whatever. And so you're looking at I see it on this level. And then, of course, you've got Mariner. She's gone. So you're thinking, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, well, how is Mariner going to come back into this? Because this is going to be kind of cool. And that was a kind of cool storyline, too. Because she tried to make it sound more shady than it actually was. And the name dropping in this episode, there were a lot of little Easter eggs in this episode that I was just loving. But I'm just trying to think. There was just like so much. Trying to just get my thoughts together. It was just so fun where you just have like I said with the Freeman ship, and she's trying to prove herself to show that she's not, her ship is not a laughing stock. We're good. I've got a good running ship. We're trying to do this and that. But it was just the mission was just hilarious, and then bringing in Rutherford. Finding out he was a key part of all of that. That kind of threw me off too. But then again, when Rutherford was looking at the code, he's like, I recognize this. I'm like, this is going to be something. This is going to be like some Data Geordi type shit going on right here. Yeah. Something's about to happen here. This is going to be really cool. So I felt like they tied up a lot of loose ends because of the episodes that you've watched throughout the season. They tied it up in a nice, neat little bow.
Yeah.
I mean, it gave resolution.
Yeah, they were able to take like one or two bits and pieces from each of those episodes to give you one good finale. And like you said, it was pretty cohesive. I think they've done a better job telling stories than most animated shows do. Mm-hmm. Even like the last couple seasons, the first one was real choppy. The second one definitely pieced together a little bit more of the Pac-Led story and everything else. Mm-hmm. But this season, you're right, told much more of like a beginning to end tale. I love the fact that they pitted California and Texas against each other because it was so funny and real. And so the amount of California class ships, they just basically went through every single city in California. It was just like da 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 da. And I'm like, wow. But man, that admiral, the admiral being the villain and the way that they told his little itty bitty story on an animated platform was really well done. I love, like you said, with Rutherford. I thought the side plot of Boimler and Shax was funny as hell. Like I said, I love
that
Shax
pays
to
off
death.
too, because hasn't he
Yes.
said that a number of times in the series, like about
Yes.
ejecting the warp core as the
Yep.
solution? So like he finally gets that payoff. Like this episode paid off so many things. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're right. I mean,
you're right.
that's it. I mean, that was the goal of all of this, and it was so well done. Just seeing all of it come together like that. I just Mariner Indiana Jonesing it throughout, across the universe, and the fact that she doesn't know, like it's a big thing for her to figure out who's funding all of these missions, and then that, like you said, that payoff, that name drop was spectacular. The fact that you would have someone as big and bold as Picard trying to continue like the search of like the preservation of like all these different species and everything else that they bring into it. But then I think like my favorite line from the episode, there's so many good ones, but the one that stuck with me the most was a ship can't have daddy issues, when they were talking about Badgie and like how they can't do Badgie 2.0 with the code because it's emotionally irrelevant or whatever the problem is. And I'm like, soon as I heard Tindy say that, I'm like, this is gold. I mean, like, it's hilarious. The episode was fantastic. I loved it.
Yeah, it actually kept me kind of on the edge of my seat as to what was going to happen. And that's what I love about things like this. Like, I'm sitting here watching this animated episode, and I'm not going to lie, I watched Tales of the Jedi before that, which this was a great episode, but holy crap. We're about to get there in a minute. Like, I was like, man, why is all this animated stuff getting me so amped up? Like, I couldn't believe it, man. And honestly, like, I had to think about it. I listen to audiobooks and I get amped up. Like, I got emotional in an audiobook earlier today. Like that's how tied into this fantasy I can get, I guess. So animation is no problem. Like especially being drawn like this, I cannot wait to see this live action.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's going to be so fun to see these characters live action, and I can't wait to see what they do with them.
I think that us talking about it, especially me, the way that I have, is going to be, it's maybe a little bit lackluster compared to like what's actually going to happen. But no, I can't wait for it either. It was, dude, just the show is so funny, and the fact that it's animated means they can get away with the stuff they get away with. So
yeah,
I love it.
I just want to say one of my favorite. Sorry, I'm thinking about it. Just makes me laugh. Like towards the end when they had, the resolution and everything. So you had everybody from all the ships that were in there or whatnot. And the one scene where you had Ransom showing everyone how to sit in a seat had me absolutely rolling. Even Ryan knows that one.
Command that chair. That's what he said.
Who is Ransom? Jerry O'Connell?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that who plays his voice? Yeah. That's
so that was an absolute call out to Riker. And I don't know how many like memes and gifs and everything you see, but that's just those little Easter eggs that I'm just like, I just hold on to.
Like you walk up to that chair, you swing your leg over that chair, you command that chair.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so question I have about this: when do we get the next season? Has it been announced? And how long before we see these characters live action? We've got it announced it's going to happen, but I don't know when.
I would say that you see a season pretty soon. I don't think that all the stuff is made, so
it's pretty successful too.
I think that you would probably catch this on the back end of Strange New World season 2.
Okay.
Which
it would make sense because that's where they're supposed to kind of do their.
Yeah.
Star Trek doesn't have a lot of gaps in production of things they do. Like they always have something new coming out.
Well,
they got lucky.
You got Strange New Worlds, you got Discovery, you got Picard coming out. I mean, it's.
It's going to be interesting, man. I love Lower Decks. This is a really cool little funny animated series to watch that actually, we've talked about how it's like serial episodes where you don't have to watch anything at all or like don't have to watch anything before that. But I think that if you've watched this entire season, it completely paid off in this finale.
That's the word.
You know,
Paid
not even
off
this
is-
season. Like it paid off. Like the last things from the last few seasons. Like I said, what's his name? The lieutenant that
Shax.
had the thing with Boiler. Yeah, had Shax that had the thing with Boiler.
Boimler.
Boimler. Yeah, he like that's been going on for a while. You know, and that they highlighted it with Boimler being putting his foot in his mouth in this episode.
Well, that was a pretty good impression, though. I will give him that.
Yeah.
Oh, I agree. I agree. It was. But it was cool how they just paid off everything in this finale. And as I'm watching it, those payoffs are amazing. Me kind of being on the edge of my seat, like, well, what the hell happens next? It was kind of amazing. It being animated, of course, was not as dramatic or thrilling as if I'd have seen something live action. I would say, like, I'd be like really on the edge of my seat live action, but it was cool. Like it was as good of a finale as I could have gotten for this series. So
Yeah.
Anytime you see a Federation ship getting fired on and getting like tore up, you're just like, oh, I don't care if it's live action or animated or not. You're like, what's about to happen?
they can take some punishment.
Yeah,
They really can.
Not only that, they don't ever talk about death a whole lot in Star Trek. So
No.
when you start worrying
a
about
lot of people died. Yeah.
all these decks, what I loved about the Kelvin timeline movies was, especially seeing the impact of getting shot and then people going into the silent, dead stillness of space. I mean, those scenes were fucking awesome. I just remember one very, very vividly, like where they get shot with torpedoes by the ship, and the woman's like trying to hang on, but she gets sucked right out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, all that visually speaking it's so good because you don't get it in Star Trek very often. Right. They just talk about, decks such and such, we facing casualties and blah, 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 but it's never highlighted and centered on. So
yeah.
There's so much. You want to talk about a universe that could expand? Just this. I mean, they always Lower Decks is phenomenal because they tell the story from the very bottom, but everything else is always told from the very top. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to see the mix and the mash of it all.
Agreed. Y'all got anything else you want to say about Lower Decks?
Can't wait for the next season.
Next season's going to be good. Well, let's go ahead and travel to a galaxy far, far away. A long, long time ago. I said it backwards, but it still sounds good.
What did you think about these before you even start? What did you think the Tales of the Jedi was going to be? And did you think that you were going to like it the way that I'm assuming the two of you have fallen in love with it pretty quickly?
Sarah, I'll let you go first.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think I really had any, preconceptions about it. I was just like, because there's been a lot of Star Wars stuff that I've seen where just let it unfold. I mean, I kind of learned my lesson about what I expect. I really don't have any expectations. Now, I can say I have not read the Ahsoka book, even though I do have it, and it is on my list, and it would probably take me about 2 hours to finish it because it's not very as dense as the other Star Trek or Star Wars books. So, I mean, I can't really. There's been a little topic of discussion on that, but for the most part, it was nice having like these little tidbits because, I've told you guys countless times, give me the meat in between.
Mm-hmm.
Give me some more context, and I felt like it gave me more context. Now, I will say one episode reminded me of something we've already seen before, but I'll save that for then. But
okay.
I mean, I just didn't really have any expectations. I really didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I just kind of went in and just watching it and just kind of let it unfold.
Yeah. I didn't go in with any expectations either. I knew that there were going to be 3 Ahsoka episodes and 3 Dooku episodes, 2 of my favorite characters in this entire universe. I did not know that it was going to be young Dooku, like really young. So what I got from this was phenomenal. I absolutely loved this little 6-part series. It was phenomenal. It was everything I needed. It's all the little bit of stuff. I can say episode 1, while entertaining, I could have done without that one and been just fine. But I love they did episode 1 with Ahsoka, then the next 3 with Dooku, then the last 2 with Ahsoka, because I was completely into this Dooku story, and that right there is the reason why I cannot be a Jedi and why I believe the Jedi are not right. Dooku is exactly the reason. That guy right there is me. That's what I'm thinking when I'm in that situation. You know, that guy, he is easily top 5 for me, you know, as far as characters go. Like, he's got one of the best lightsabers ever, and it was cool to see it blue this time. But I love, love, love the way they portrayed this character. I love the little bit of storyline we got between here. And you're right, the cartilage between the ribs is what I need. You know, like, I love Star Wars so much and this universe so much. And Cody's going to come on in a minute and talk about the Game of Thrones universe. And the Game of Thrones universe is kind of the same way, man. It's so detailed and so intricate. You can dive into it and never get bored. And I needed this stuff right here. I absolutely loved it. For me, it was a home run, and I got way more than I expected. Ross?
Mine is simple. This is exactly what I was thinking it was going to be, and I am very happy that it was, because it worked out very well. We can run through the episodes real fast and just touch on, their best points briefly if you want to, or however you want to handle it. I mean,
we can just kind of summarize it. I mean, it's 6 quick episodes. I think if you watch it, if you skip the intros and the credits at the end, you can probably watch them all in an hour.
Yeah, y'all do that. I gotta get my headset charger anyway. So
You're cool. Yeah,
do that.
You could probably watch them all in an hour, to be honest with you.
The first one, I thought it was called Life and Death, and it had what I thought was almost the first episode of, what was the short series they did with all the animation?
The where it was all different stories.
Yeah, I'll remember it in a second.
Visions,
but
right?
Visions, yeah, Star Wars Visions. And so this one was very much, it had that Japanese, almost like concreteness to it. The way they told a story, it had a roided out saber-toothed tiger, which was badass. You want to talk about a pet? I mean, good gracious! Put one of those suckers in a cage.
But it was cool seeing Ahsoka's family, seeing where she came from.
It was.
So, I mean, I think that was another thing that was kind of cool about it, too. I mean, you got little baby Ahsoka.
But it was also a little heartbreaking because you get, what's going to happen. Like, you know that, to get ripped away like that is, essentially.
Well, I'm not going to lie.
But that's a lot of times, when you do see, like, the younglings, you don't really think about where they come from.
Yeah.
Where their families, what they were, taken from and that kind of thing. You might, it's kind of like what Obi-Wan, he kind of touched on a little bit. He's like, I don't really remember. I mean, that's the way a lot of them were. That's why Anakin was a lot different. Luke was a lot different because, I mean, you kind of started to where, because they were like itty bitties when they were taken.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of interesting.
I agree with Jay Stubbs. He says, let Dave, I'm assuming Filoni, run Star Wars. And I think they're kind of doing that because you're right. Anything he touches is amazing.
Well, so is his character. I mean, that's his pride.
He
and
knows
this
the
was
universe.
In development when he was, I think this show was the one that was in development when he was put in charge of the animation department.
Yeah.
And so, like, when he took over everything from animation, I do believe this was on their list of things that they were putting together. And, he stepped in with Favreau to learn more about like live action and like what it takes, and how he talked about how it gave him such a better insight on how to like direct animation. Look, this right here was done in such a Clone War animation style to hold true to the actual look. Not only that, but it was done in a way that was better, because I mean, if you look at all the texturing and everything else that they put in, like there's just this one episode right off the bat, I was stunned by how all of that had evolved so fast. Over the years, we had Clone Wars. It was simple. It took on 3D animation to a next level. Now we have this, but talk about all the story that was put into all this. Like the story is what made it.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, I know that it followed up on everything that he did, but it just goes to show. I don't know enough about the background characters to really know, not even background characters, but the background crew to know who had a larger hand in actually creating this. So whoever it is, good on all of them.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because, like I said, the first episode is about Ahsoka. The next 3 are about Dooku. Then the last 2 are about Ahsoka, which is an interesting way to split it up. But I kind of like the way they did that because once I started to get into that Dooku story, I kind of wanted to see a finale to it and like how it's going. You see the transition of him the whole time. And the first Ahsoka story was slightly different than everything else. Like it seemed irrelevant. Not that it was bad, but it seemed irrelevant to everything else that was going on. All the other stories are based on history of what happened in this universe, political, parties engaging in different actions that cause different things. And the first Ahsoka story, while good, was just about her being a baby and learning about life and death. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought that whenever like I was watching it and I saw the badass tiger you're talking about come up, and I was like, this episode is labeled life and death. And she's teaching her daughter about life and death at the beginning of like before they go hunting. I was like, she's about to die. I thought for sure her mom was about to die. I was like, holy shit, they're gonna do this in Star Wars. But they didn't. Spoilers, they didn't. So it kind of took away from that a little bit. So the first episode was really good, but after that, man, I'm telling you,
the second one jumped right into politics. It jumped right into Dooku. And look, I knew Dooku had a backstory that I would find interesting. I knew that, the way that when you draw the dots on the map to connect, Yoda to Dooku to Qui-Gon to Obi-Wan to Anakin, it's fairly seamless. But when you get to actually see the mindset, not only that, but you get to see why Qui-Gon is who he is because of it. I think that was even better because I love Qui-Gon. I thought Qui-Gon was a 100% underused character in all of the Star Wars story and lore. He got to die at the end of the first movie and it sucked. So bringing him and Dooku onto this journey, first off, the ship was pretty cool. I'm more of a horizontal ship person, but I guess for a vertical ship, that was pretty cool. Yeah. It reminded me of the science ship that Spock was in the Kelvin timeline. So that's what I went back to. But this episode is, I hate to use the word, but I don't know a better one to really describe it. It was very political. It really played on every aspect of, you got a senator of a planet who got way too hungry and way too distant from like the people that he was actually trying to take care of. And then, he overstepped. The people were dying. He wasn't treating his constituents worth a damn. And he fucked around and he got to find out. They took his son. And so not only that, but you get to see Dooku force choke for the very first time because he's about to lose his shit, because who can agree with that behavior? I don't know.
Oh yeah. Look, man, like I said, you see Dooku at this point, like you see the transition, just like you do with Anakin in the live action movies. Like,
and so that was very similar. That's why I was saying that something it was very similar, but it was just the mindsets were a lot different. That's why I think it kind of went the two separate ways.
Look, Cody, I thought about it, man, and I know you say you're not a Star Wars guy, but I think it's because you probably saw the old Star Wars movies where they use potatoes as asteroids and like have puppets. Well, like if you can get out of that and just get into the lore, I think you would absolutely love this universe, and not the Skywalker universe, because the Skywalker universe is great, but I mean everything else that it involves, every other character, all the political aspects of this show, like this universe, everything that's happened. Like I think you would completely dig like the Star Wars universe. I really do if you dove into it. But there is so much to dive into. There's not really a starting point.
No.
Yeah, where do you start?
You just pick a point and you just go.
Do you want to go chronologically? Do you want to start where the movie started? Like, what do you want to do? There's not really a good starting point. So, but anyway, I digress a little bit. Like the way they portrayed Dooku, like, first of all, it was really cool. I think Dooku has the baddest ass lightsaber, besides maybe Ventress. Because I love that curved hilt. Of anybody,
my son would agree with you.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
He loves it.
It's so
I like
elegant.
it too. It's always
elegant. Yes, but to see it blue in this episode was awesome. I was like, holy shit, that's his lightsaber. That means he had to have changed the crystal or built a new one, right? Like, there's no other way to change the color. But I love the Dooku episodes. I love seeing the transition of him. And like I said, Dooku is not wrong.
Yeah.
Like I said, maybe the method
noble. He sounded very noble in his belief. Like it made sense.
Yes, it made 100% sense. Exactly what he's saying is right, but there is no good way to go about
Mhm.
the way to bring it to justice or to do it. Like, I mean, without looking evil or committing evil crimes.
Well, it
Like,
holds true to
he's not wrong.
it holds true to the mindset that they were that the Jedi were too full of themselves. That they didn't look into things as much as they should have, and they basically just thought that there was nothing that could get around them, and they were wrong.
They served the rich.
Yeah.
So
when you jump to episode 3 was choices, they had to go track down the killer of. I'll remember her name in a second. I remember this episode, the senator in the episode. It reminded me of the guy who voiced the Jace character in Arcane. Because every time he kept on talking, I'm like, oh man, it sounds just like him. It's just like him. But
it started with an L. It was
the one that they were trying to save.
Mm-hmm.
You
tell me this is talking about the senator.
Oh, the senator. Yeah, I can't remember the senator's name. I know the Katri was the Jedi they were trying to figure out. So I believe it was Katri.
It looked almost like she looked very similar to Anduli.
Yeah,
like with the whole.
She was a Jedi Master. Not even that. She was a council seat, and so the whole right off the bat, it's Mace Windu and Dooku, and I mean it is the unbuddiest cop, investigation. What you're going to get right then and there, and so the two of them, Dooku's the aggressive one, which is funny, You had the same kind of story. It was another political uprising. It was people who weren't happy with the way that things were happening, and they ended up killing a Jedi, and so that was just another domino in, I guess, Dooku's change. I don't want to call it his downfall because yes, eventually it did turn into his downfall, but man, this episode was the least of the important Dooku episodes for me because the next one jumped right into the Sith Lord episode. And you want to talk about parallels with Anakin? This one had it shot for shot.
Yes.
When it started,
are y'all still talking about Andor?
No,
we're
talking
about
about
Tales of the
We're talking about Tales of the Jedi.
Okay, my
It was
bad.
a little 6-part series that came out on Disney Plus. Yeah.
Okay.
It started with the Jedi Archives, and it started with that one little bit of information that we all knew, but we didn't know how it happened. And he went in and boop, bye Camino. Not only did he take it out, but you saw he used Cypher Diaz's name. He just the whole plan, because that he didn't feel happy going in with it because you knew it wasn't his. It was definitely Palpatine's or Sidious. And so you actually got the pickup of this episode right at the end of Phantom Menace where Qui-Gon died. So the archive stuff was deleted 10 years before episode 2. Because all this right here picks up right at the end of Phantom Menace.
Right.
Someone else pointed out, wasn't reading fast enough, but talking about Yaddle. You know who voiced Yaddle?
No.
Oh yeah, that was Bryce Dallas Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. But that was cool. Like, look, Star Wars has a great job of weaving webs together and tying up loose ends where somebody can ask a question and it's like, well, you can find an answer to that if you just dig deep enough.
Yeah.
There are certain holes though they have filled that for me weren't even a big deal. It was like, oh, I wonder how that happened. But if I never find out, it's no big deal. And we got kind of some of that stuff here, like you said, with this using the Cypher Diaz, deleting the Camino stuff. Everything in these episodes of Dooku was like, oh, the Yaddle. Like you find out the fate of Yaddle, what happens. It's just all this stuff. It's like, okay. I love how they're tying this up because for years I've wondered these things, but never been wondering to the point where, well, I'm not going to pay attention or it's bad enough I'm not going to watch, But it's like now it's just extra stuff. Like I said, it's cartilage between the ribs. It's fantastic little news that you don't need to see. And the finale there, because between episodes 2 and 3 with with Dooku, there's a big time jump, and you do see in one he's Qui-Gon's his apprentice, and in the next one Qui-Gon's dead. So there's one where him and Mace Windu are not even on the council yet, And by the next one,
Yeah, I
you
forgot
know,
that
like
last
it's already
episode.
Qui-Gon's dead, and Qui-Gon was on the council. Or no, excuse me, he got offered a
Mace.
position on the council and refused.
Oh, yeah.
Mace was on the council, yeah, but so like it's like wow, so they take liberties and take time jumps in these episodes, but it's all key points in this character's development that you need to see, you know. And it's funny because you know we're going to talk time jumps here in a little while too with House of the Dragon, but yeah, like I love the way they fleshed out Dooku in this. And like I know Nathan loves Clone Wars, and I know Nathan loves Dooku. So like as soon as I finished like the third episode, I texted him. I was like, "Dude, have you watched this yet?" And he said, "I watched the first episode." I said, "Okay, please watch the next few, please, because the first episode's good, but the next few are completely different than the first one, you know." And I said, "Please
the whole
watch the next
Qui-Gon
few."
thing,
Yes.
or not Qui-Gon, but the whole Dooku arc was just phenomenal. You know, I mean, I skipped that on the last one when Mace actually got onto the council. We figure out how he got onto the council. Not only that, but at that funeral, I mean, you got Kiadi Mundi coming out in a full on hood, which it's funny seeing a hood that actually covers that enormous head of his.
Right.
But I mean, they did callbacks. You had Terra Sanoob. It looked like Plo Koon was there.
Mm-hmm.
I know, they had all these characters that they had not everything else right there. To turn around, jump even further, because you know now I don't remember what the time jump was between those two episodes, but you know you have the council getting ready to go to Naboo when Qui-Gon's staring at the tree, talk about how much, or not Qui-Gon, when Dooku's staring at the tree, talking about how much Qui-Gon used to actually enjoy it because Qui-Gon was born on Coruscant. I'm not sure that I actually had that in my trivia mind. I know a ton of stuff about Star Wars, but I'm not sure that I actually knew that he was born on Coruscant.
Yeah.
That's why I say you had the shot-for-shot scene after that, whenever he got in his little Jedi cruiser or whatever that was going to take him over to the back area where he landed at the end of episode 2, and the whatever you want to call that area where he meets up with Sidious, and then Yaddle follows him. You get that fight. You actually get, you know, Dooku doesn't only fight Yoda, he fights Yaddle too. And how weird is that? How weird is it to have one character that fights both of, you know, an unnamed species in Star Wars that we still don't to this day know what they're actually called? It's weird. Yeah, it was really cool seeing Yaddle being extremely powerful. I think that that was the other part of the scene. The fight scene reminded me very much of Return of the Jedi. It was almost, it mirrored the Vader and Luke Skywalker fight at the end of Return of the Jedi, and it was done with Dooku and Yaddle, and I thought that was really cool in itself too.
Well, I guess you mean like the Emperor watching type thing.
Not just watching, but the way that you know, Yaddle was ready to not give in, but kind of let Dooku make a decision that he probably didn't really want to make.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where Vader doesn't want to make the decision for his son at the end of Return of the Jedi. So
yeah,
there's a whole lot of different parts that were in play with that for me. So,
okay. But yeah, I loved what they did with the Dooku stuff in this, and it was exactly what I needed, man. You could have given me that without the Ahsoka stuff, and I would have been just fine. However, we got the Ahsoka stuff too, which was also amazing. Like I said, episode 1 was slightly different than the rest. Episode 1 is, you know, her as between 0 and 1 year old. And then the final 2 episodes are like crisis points, you know, in Order 66 and like right in that time period, you know, her becoming Ahsoka. And it's just funny that at the end of the first episode, like, and this was the only thing that got me about the first episode, they're like, she's a Jedi. And I'm like, well, first of all, you wouldn't know that. Second of all, she was never a Jedi. In fact, her big tagline is, I am no Jedi, right?
No Jedi.
Yeah, so like she was never a Jedi, and I get that, you know, that's just me being picky and being funny, but
it's true. I mean, you think about her morals, how much she actually falls in line with Qui-Gon and Dooku. I've always said that, you know, she was 2 masters too short, and you know, she would have been the perfect student for Qui-Gon.
Yeah,
I think this episode, Practice Makes Perfect. The 5th episode was, I think, 4 and 5 are about my favorite episodes. And I think 5 was really good because you see the asshole that Anakin was to her. And as much as you saw that in the Clone Wars here and there, the first line that you get from Anakin talking to Ahsoka is, you know, he's just like, you think that's a test? Like, I'll show you a test. You little
Test,
And
yeah.
you're like, what? Like, who's going to be like that? They're up against new battle remotes that are more prone to shoot like the actual droids, which first time we've seen something like that. But the stun circle, like with Anakin's crew coming up and just shooting her like crazy and watching her just take hit after hit, and you're seeing the development, and you're seeing it very slow. It's very Karate Kiddish. It's very like you got to keep going and push through the pain.
Mm-hmm.
But man, you cannot put a value on that last scene. That last scene where she shows up in what ended up being Clone Wars Season 7 at that door, and you got Rex behind her. And I mean, like, when that happened, I was like, oh,
yeah.
My heart just sank. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because it was true. It was all of that shit that Anakin put her through, and it ended up being the thing that saved her life.
Yep. They have such a great toy box to play with in Star Wars, and they've done such a good job in the last few years of tying things together and making things make sense. It's perfect. It's why, hands down, look, I'm getting into the Game of Thrones universe right now, and I am thoroughly enjoying it. It is absolutely amazing. But I'm sorry, nothing I don't think will ever hold a candle to Star Wars. I just don't think it will, man. That universe, I have like 35 audiobooks, like 32 of them are Star Wars books. Like something like that. Or it's very close. Like it's amazing. Like, and I haven't even scratched the surface on Star Wars books. Like it's not even funny. Like there's so many, it's crazy. And the universe just works so well together. This series did it for me. This series was something I didn't know I needed, but I needed. And once I got it, holy shit. I am so glad they did this. Like, I
6
love
episodes.
this series. Yes.
I think it was 10 to 17 minutes. I mean, it's about your best bang for your buck.
Yeah.
I mean, this was phenomenal. The last episode, Resolve, did the connection to, I don't know where you are in Rebels. Do you know Ahsoka's role in Rebels?
I've seen Ahsoka a number of times in Rebels. It seems like she's almost like the...
Okay, but if you've seen her in Rebels, then I mean, then you should know enough. Like this episode was that connecting point, right? It was the number one. She was at Padme's funeral. Holy fuck! Like they're just gonna drop her in the background. Which now I almost wanted to be like, I'm gonna go watch that scene real fast and see if she's back there.
That'd be pretty cool. Yeah,
but the conversation, you see how sly Organa is with the way that he's talking. When he's talking to the actual stormtroopers and he's actually talking to her, she bounces out. You get to see her in a jumpsuit again, which I don't know if this is pre or post in that whole little bit there. I'm assuming that it is post season 7. But you see her being out of the fight long enough to where she actually has to get back in it, and this is what leads her to the position that she ends up in Rebels. So perfect.
Beautiful. Beautifully done.
Connective tissue.
Exactly, and that's what we get with Star Wars, and I absolutely love it, man. Like I said, if you're a Star Wars fan and you haven't checked out Tales of the Jedi yet, Disney did a really good job giving me something I didn't know I needed, but I absolutely effing loved.
This show was a laughing stock when they talked about it.
Really?
Only because no one knew nearly enough about it, and they were like, "You're just going to do like really short episodes," and they're just like, "No one wants that," because everyone thought they were going to come out with some real BS quality stuff, and.
No.
Yeah.
This is
where we
went perfectly. This is exactly what I needed. Absolutely no filler. All the information I needed. Bam, right there. And in the animation style I love. With the Clone Wars animation style. So it was perfect. But once again,
switch gears.
I highly recommend it. If you're a Star Wars fan, check out Tales of the Jedi. Take about an hour of your day. You can watch all of them. No problem. But let's switch gears. We got our homeboy Cody Lack. He's been waiting in the background. Cody, I appreciate you being patient and waiting, man. But, man, you and I have been talking for the last few days nonstop about some House of the Dragon because I have been pounding through this book. Audio. Been pounding through this audio book. And
Same thing.
today, I just finished what would be season 1 of House of the Dragon. So now everything I'm reading from here is completely new. There's nothing like it's. I guess what next season is going to go into. I'm going to spoil next season for myself. But
Yeah.
man, this book has opened up this show for me tremendously. Cody, what's up? Let's talk about some House of the Dragon. I'm sorry I should have introduced you first. What's up?
No, dude, it's no problem. I felt like I got my ass whipped on the Friday free for all, dude.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody was
It was
screaming and
dude,
fucking
G Baby and
going
Pickle were going
crazy.
ham. You know?
Dude, they really were. And so yeah, I needed a break for a second to collect myself. But no, so a few things, man. Like you rediscovering or discovering for the first time rather the Song of Ice and Fire universe has made me go back, and now I'm rereading the original series. I'm on book 2, and I'm all the way back into it, and I'm loving it again, man. And I just I'll be able to show it to you on the post game show. They just put out this Rise of the Dragon art book that you can get on Amazon. Dude, it is gorgeous. It has some of the best fantasy illustrators in the world, and they literally went through the Fire and Blood book and they illustrated all the most badass and best scenes from each chapter and each part. And it's a big coffee table book. So I'm pumped. Yeah, now that you've read the book, I'm into the. So you said to me in the chat earlier or in our DM that it's crazy that the first season was just this one tiny chapter in the book. Like it wasn't even that much.
Right.
So my opening question to you, knowing that, is do the time jumps now that you've read that chapter and it takes place in different parts of their lives, do the time jumps make more sense to you now, or are they more justified rather?
100%. Yes, they
Okay.
completely make more sense. You know, this it's like I said, I've been reading this whole book and I've been trying to get to at least the end of what season 1 would be in the book before we got to the finale. Today was that day. Like I got to listen to it today. And I was kind of surprised because I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to listen to like 5 or 6 hours of this because it's gonna be a couple chapters. Even though a few of the chapters, like one of the chapters, is like 2.5 hours audio wise, which is a long chapter. But I kind of couldn't believe it that when I got to chapter 13, like that was it. That was the entire
Yeah.
season 1, minus episodes 10, minus the last episode. Like it's all the way up to episode 9. You know, so
Yeah.
like minus that, that's the entire first season. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I've been listening to 16 hours of this book, which is 12 chapters up to this point, to get to this show. And now this entire first season is one chapter. However,
Yeah.
it described everything in the season. Like as I from the beginning to the end, I was like,
Yeah.
that was this episode. That was this episode.
Yeah.
That's how I did this. That's how I did this. And it was awesome
Yeah.
because this chapter in particular in this book, like the whole book is read by one maester or one author, narrator who's reading the scribes of the maesters, right? But this particular chapter, they say going into it, has a lot of different like viewpoints of what really happened, which I think is why they tackled this chapter to make the show out of, because you can take more liberties. And there's basically 3 storylines. There's the guy called Mushroom, there's the maester who's telling one of the ones who's telling the story, and there's the narrator from who's kind of taking what everybody said. And so like when you go through this chapter, you see everything that happened in the show, but like what they did in the show and what they said in the book is not necessarily the same from this point of view. But this guy said this is what happened and they did this in the show. So they take different parts of what everybody said happened and they kind of mixed them all together in the show. And it was fantastic the way it worked. They do a little bit of different time jumping and there are some a few changes. Like, you know, what's his name? Who was Rhaena's first husband, the one who Laenor. Like his death is a little different in the book, but it's basically the same kind of thing. Like stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's really cool. Like how especially in this chapter, like I can see they took this one because there's so many liberties you can take with them admitting we don't really know what happened. We have these 3 people who tell the story, and we kind of take a story out of that to tell you what we think happened and what we know the results are. And it's really cool they took that and did that in this book.
Yeah, and it also, the show it's in a unique position where it can take these liberties that are different from the book, because it's just like it's supposed to be like real history, right? The victor writes the story, but oftentimes you're going back into history, and there are sources that had their own bias, and maybe they even lived a little bit later than the events that they were talking about, and you're kind of getting all of this information in this hazy kind of recanting. And to that point, um so okay, did you in the book, did you get to the fight between Aemond and Vagar?
No,
And okay, so all right, you
not
haven't
yet.
gotten all
That's
right.
the next chapter. I stopped. Like I said, it's basically to the last episode of this first season is this chapter
Right. Well,
1
even
through
that
9.
is,
Yeah.
it's not really a big spoiler, but even that is a little bit different. And they're gonna be able to continue to do this kind of stuff. Like in episode 9, remember when Kristen Cole took the Master of Coin, Lord Beesbury, and slammed his head down on the table.
Hmm.
Right. But in the book,
It's different. Yeah.
none of those happen. But the author tells you there are 3 different accounts of what happened right here.
Hmm.
Mushroom says it threw Kristen Cole threw his ass out the window. Something Bart says he cut his neck open. Another one says they sent him to the black cell. It's like all these different points of view. So if you're the writers of this show, you can kind of take your own liberties with what they decide to do and how they decide to tell the story. And it's definitely going to be interesting um, going forward. But yeah, on this episode, so that way we can get Ross and Sarah in, because I'm dying to
Yeah.
hear what they thought of it too. Um, this episode to me showed some poise by Rhaenyra that I didn't necessarily anticipate. Right? There's that scene where she's around the table and everybody's beckoning her to war. And Rhaenys even says that to Corlys later on, after he wakes up. He's like, she's there, and every knight in the realm around her is beckoning her to burn the kingdom alive in war, and she's actually trying to stop herself and like not jump to that kind of violence, which is very different from Damon. Damon is ready to fuck shit
Oh yeah.
up like right away. He is not playing. Um, and it was a great episode, man, from the front to the back. Um, yeah, y'all go first. I'll jump in whenever I'm needed, man.
Well, I just want to speak on Rhaenyra because throughout this entire season, she has been just phenomenal, and especially when you had like the adult was like Emma Darcy. Oh my God, this lady, or they
Yeah,
are fantastic. I mean, it's just the scenes, it's the emotion that's portrayed. It's in this episode. There's so much loss and anger and just a lot of shit that happens. I mean, you find out your father's past. You have this traumatic, in essence, miscarriage, and then you have that, that other, I'm like, how much more can she handle, and how can she not want to burn it to the ground? And I mean, and then you have Damon. Of course, everybody else. That's the big thing about Damon that's been so interesting, is because he's this character that you're supposed to hate, but you kind of understand where he's coming from, because like I think it's what we talked about. What was it last week about? The middle son syndrome,
yeah,
basically. He's just like, I'm trying to, be basically legitimate in front of everybody and not just this whatever. But that one particular scene, I get why. I get why he was so angry. I get why he lashed out. I understand that, and it's because, especially when she looked at him and she's like, "You didn't know," and dude, that just like,
yeah,
it's just a lot of it just makes their characters make sense, and that's why a lot of times when I hear people with their opinions, I'm like, how are you not putting this together? But then
Right.
it's just been an absolute just Jim watching this. I mean, just the level of emotion. But I think if even after all of the birth scenes, after all of this, that very last moment when Rhaenyra turns around, I'm like, oh, I'm scared now.
Yeah.
I'm 100% scared because that's a look you don't want to see, especially a female make. I mean, because shit's about to go down. That's that's Damon
like,
can look all crazy all he wants to, but that was scary.
And just if like we're recapping, she just lost her daughter. That's how
I
it
was going to ask
opens
this
the
question.
episode. Yeah, she loses her daughter. She just lost her father. She lost her mother. Now she's lost her son. She lost her lover. And Harmon Strong is like loss after loss after loss after loss. And there's that point in the episode, at the very end, we're kind of like jumping around here, but that does, like Sarah says, when she turns around, that's when, oh, okay, all of that nice guy and wanting to talk tomorrow and all of this stuff, nah, that's out the window. I got more dragons than y'all, and I'm willing to burn the realm because we are not going to be able to coexist in this world. Yeah, I thought that it was a great touch of just showing from the start of the episode where her character is at to the very end, and just in one look, like Sarah says, in one look, you're able to see, oh, okay, things are different now. This is war, cold-blooded war by any means necessary.
Yeah. Ross, I want to hear your thoughts before I go into any more points. I got a few points to bring up, but I want to hear your overall thoughts on this week's episode first.
The episode was fantastic. I love the yin and the yang of the two stories back to back. Overall, everything told from the Game of Thrones point of view and the House of Dragon point of view has always been absolutely fantastic. They hit everything perfectly, and I don't think that we're truly appreciating every bit of it until there's probably enough time that's gone by and you start to see so many more things that come out after it that aren't as good as it. I think the Game of Thrones has been that example. For me, it has been like the pinnacle of like dramatic storytelling in a way that I think anyone can get behind it. House of Dragon has continued to prove that. My question to everyone is like, how many before she lost her newest child, how many kids does Rhaenyra actually have? How many are we up to now?
5. 3 with Damon. Well, no, 3 with Damon and 2 with Strong, correct?
Strong. Okay.
Oh, but no, 2 with Damon because that was going to be her third one.
Oh, okay. It was going to be her third one. Okay.
Right,
So, yeah.
and then it died. So 5, but at the end of the episode,
5, one passed, and then the other
4.
one, yeah. So from beginning of the season to where we ended up with this episode, Rhaenyra didn't want to take her station as the princess and then turn queen, and now she is a mother of kids and she's losing them. Like it's. I wish that we would have gotten words either on or off screen, similar to how they did with Viserys in episode 8.
Passed away.
Yeah, like at the very end, I wish she would have said something just like, I wish she just would have put it down on the table and just been like, killed them all. Or, like something so like, just to get you like pumped, like not that I wasn't already, but I wanted something to put the dot on the exclamation point. To Sarah's point, Damon is he's such an odd character. Stubbs is right. I mean, the second son's phrase has been with me since the beginning of this season. To see that, but there is something about Damon to where I can totally relate when chaos is happening and you're the level-headed one in the room, even though I don't think that his level head is. It's probably level-headed for the time, but
it's a violent level head. Yeah.
It is a violent level head, but I mean, like he's right. I mean, because in this world, your options are probably very limited, and your options are either you bend over or you kill someone bending over. So you don't have a whole lot to go off of, and I think that Damon he's the quiet type. He's the one that he's plotting and thinking and always has something going on in his brain, and like I can relate with that, and I love that character has been such a force to reckon with in this show. And Rhaenyra has been doing more character building, but you can't say anything different from her come the end of this episode. The Hightowers, look, there's a fight. I'm ready for season 2. I don't know a better way to say that I am here until season 99 gets renewed. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm right there with you, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I thought this finale was slightly lackluster, to be truly honest with you. I really, really enjoyed the story, but I feel like okay, so like episode 9 was about like the Greens, and episode 10 was about the Blacks, basically. Like, it was just their 2 stories after Viserys has passed, where they're at. I feel like you could have combined that into the penultimate, and then given me the beginning of the Dance of the Dragons. Like,
that's very much Game of Thrones, though.
Yes, and I get that. So like, and it's cool. It just sucks that I have to wait till 2023 or 2024 now to get the payoff on this. Even though I'm gonna read the book tomorrow, so I'm gonna know what happens.
Now it kind of seems like HBO really wants to push it into 2023, but I don't know. We'll see how long it takes them to make it. They're getting ready to start filming.
I'm not sure if they can.
Yeah, I don't think so either, Ross. With everything that goes into it, and now there's going to be new locations. So, Ross knows what I'm talking about. Like, how important the Starks are in Game of Thrones. Well, you're going to be getting a lot of them in this next season too. So it's going to kind of broaden up the world more and more as this war continues. And I don't think they're going to be able to make it into 2023, but they are trying. I just don't think they'll be able to do it.
Right.
If you get a chance to watch the behind the scenes stuff that comes with this, because not the post episode stuff, but now there's a whole 10-part like behind the scenes. It shows you a little bit here, a little bit there, but it goes back into the. It's almost like when the Battle of the Bastards happened in Game of Thrones. It was they did like a whole mini documentary on that whole entire scene being shot, and the miniseries that HBO has now for this show, it shows you, man. I mean, like we watch a lot of stuff that has gone from like the prequel of Star Wars to where everything was green and blue screen, to something like this. And this is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. It's, yes, there are effects. Yes, there are things that come in and need, post touch up and everything else. But it is such a massive production. They even said that they don't have like an A and a B team. They have a whatever they call, they do a combination filming to where they have to push the actors around. So they are filming in multiple places, getting the scene set up in one country, and everything built and all the permits pulled and everything perfect, so that all the actors have to do are fly in, get in costume, and do their parts. And then they fly out to another place to where the second set is doing the same exact thing in another location, because they're trying to double team their actual production for this stuff. The amount that goes into this is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
And to kind of go on what you were saying, Ross, they didn't even know that this was going to be successful, because now it seems like a no-brainer, like duh.
Yeah.
But the way Game of Thrones ended, it left such a bad taste in people's mouth that there was no guarantee that this was going to be a smash hit. So now that it is, and they see how the fan reaction to it, they're going to throw so much more money into this. And we haven't even seen like half the number of dragons that are supposed to actually appear in this show. So it's Greg, like I said, I envy you in a way, because all the shit that's getting ready to happen, like dude, I can't wait for you to message me. Just like hear what you're gonna say, dude. It's pretty awesome. But
And see,
Oh,
this
man.
is what's going to get me because when they start taking out the dragons, that's going to get me. That's because, like, with this one, I'm like, no.
yeah,
You
it
Like
was.
that,
don't want to
you-
get attached to
Kill all the
them.
people you want to. Leave the
Yeah.
animals out of it. Just leave the animals out of it. Yeah, so
Just sound like
that's me. So.
You sound like my mom. She's the same way. Anytime animals get hurt, so whatever, let all the people die. But not
Yeah,
animals.
Don't
leave
let
them
them
out.
get hurt. That's right.
Yeah.
That scene. Oh,
Cody, it's so funny because like I'll be listening to the book and I know that like I'm like, damn it, I'm gonna annoy the shit out of Cody today. But like every time
No,
I hear
not at
something cool,
all.
like I remember texting you like Viserys was just born, Rhaenyra was just born, like oh cool, I know where I'm at in this show. Like cool, the sea snake
Yeah.
was just born. Like I'm going through all this shit and I'm like, holy shit, so and so did so and so. I can't believe that. And I'm like, I'm probably
Yeah.
annoying the shit out of him. But I know that I'm
No,
on my route
not
and I'm
at
like,
all,
oh, every
dude.
time I get to a cool point, I stop my truck, put it in park. I'm like, oh, I gotta text Cody about this. You know? It's
Dude.
amazing. So I want to ask you before we dive into this episode,
Yeah.
like because I thought about this today. If you could think of one house name in this entire series that, besides Targaryen, is the
Mhm.
most influential house to how this whole thing happens, what would you say it was?
Oh, easy. House Stark. Wait, do you mean in House of the
In
Dragon?
House of the Dragon, not Game of Thrones.
Oh,
I was questioning that.
yeah. I mean, I guess you have to say the High Towers.
Okay.
I mean, just by default, just because everything that
They're the
happens
largest
with
antagonist.
yeah, Otto and his and Alicent and all the kids being High Towers and just how connected the High Towers are to Old Town and the Faith and the Citadel of the Maesters are like all of the power structures in this world are from the same place and ruled over by the same people, which is
Okay.
the High Towers. So
Okay.
yeah, I would say them.
I would say, I believe the High Towers probably are the right answer, but can I throw in there the Strong household? The
Oh
Strong name
yeah,
is like
absolutely.
just from reading the book, because the Strong name comes up a number of times in the book for a number
Oh
of
yeah,
reasons, and you're like, holy shit, okay, 16 bastard children, okay, got you. I see what's
yeah,
going on. Like I see what's going on here. Like, and honestly, if it wasn't for the Strongs and they're this whole universe would be totally different. I feel like that might be the most influential name in this universe, like to what's like how the whole story unfolds, because no matter what the main events are, there's always a Strong in the background.
yeah. And
Something happened because a Strong
Looking at
did
some
this.
feet.
so
Not
look,
even that, like the bastard children for Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
Like, and even
Yeah.
before that, like years before that, there was some shit with the Strongs that happened. That's like, holy shit, okay, I see what's going on here. Like, this is a big deal. Like, they're a big name
yeah,
that's not a big name,
yeah. And I would even say the Valerians are up there too, House
Yeah.
Valerian. Yeah, with how important they are. Um, yeah, and okay, so I don't know what you're gonna read after Fire and Blood. You could definitely jump into the main series, which was never a bad idea. But they also have these novellas that George has written called Dunk and Egg. And I won't go too deep into it right now, but the main character of that book is everyone theorizes that he is a descendant of one of those 16 bastards of House Strong.
Okay.
Yeah, and once you read about the character, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I see that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's gonna really make sense to you.
I'm
But
telling you, man, the Strongs fucked everything up, dude.
yeah,
Like, they really did. They fucked everything up.
they
But
did.
so let's talk
Yeah,
about this episode then.
yeah.
One point I wanted to bring up, and I'm going to bring this up, and I'm sure everybody else will bring up a lot of other scenes, but I want to talk about the painted table. I
I was gonna say
I,
that thing sold the show.
Yeah, it's
I
so
want
dope.
this painted table. Holy shit,
Yeah,
this thing is
man.
cool, man.
Light
What
it
an
up.
awesome idea and a great way to portray it too,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, I
And
had
that's
no idea what they're doing when they're lighting all the candles. Then they put it
and
under the
it,
table and the table lights up. I'm like, oh, that is so
it was a
amazing.
very
The
nice
thing
touch.
was, the science didn't work for me. I'm like, there's no way that thing would light up like that. But when
Right.
it did, I was like, I don't
Right.
even care. That
Moving
thing
ice.
Let that one go.
is sexy. Like
It was so
that should be
badass.
my dinner table. like
Yeah.
above anything else. I want that.
I want a replica of that. Yes.
And I want to
100%.
put a
I'm
clapper
down
on
with
it. I don't even need I don't need smart LEDs or anything. I want to be like, boom.
I
Yeah.
just started rereading A Clash of Kings. I'm literally on the prologue, and Stannis Baratheon is sitting at that table in Dragonstone. But yeah, and the significance of it. Of course, you have Rhaenyra and the prophecy that she's connected to with Viserys. That Viserys told her about, and Aegon the Conqueror had that table commissioned. This giant table that was a map of all of Westeros, because he had the goal of unifying the entire Seven Kingdoms under House Targaryen for this your thing that's to come, right? And that's another thing, Greg. Like in the books, they don't really touch on the prophecy a bunch, but
No,
the
they don't.
show really, really does.
It does.
And
Yeah.
they're really leaning into it. And I think that's on purpose too. Because George R. R. Martin has come out and basically said that, prophecy is at the center of many Targaryens, and there are dreamers, and Viserys was a dreamer. Now it's been heavily implied throughout the episodes that Helena, Alicent's daughter, the creepy one, is also a dreamer and
Mhm.
having these prophetic dreams about stuff that's to come. That's why I said the beast beneath the boards, the beast beneath the boards.
And in the book, there are predecessors that talk about spiders and rats, just like she did in the show. The
Yeah,
same kind of way. Yeah. So it's like, well, okay. Look, man,
yeah,
this is crazy because, like I said, this whole first season is this one chapter. And quite honestly, while the season was great and I love what they did with the story, I kind of want to see this Jaehaerys story because, like,
yeah.
that's a huge bolt. Like he was the king for like 65 years
Yeah,
of the reign of the greatest reign of this household. Like that story is almost a little bit better just listening to it than the Viserys story, and I kind of want to see
oh,
that
for
too.
sure.
So, and they have so many liberties they can go with. If they made one season out of this one chapter, and I'm into chapter 12 now, I can only imagine
Yeah,
what they could do with the rest of them because the chapter before this was like 2.5 hours long. Like it was
yeah,
huge,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So
And he was the oldest living Targaryen king, and it
mm,
was because of him that all the prosperity of the realm really started to happen. Because from Aegon to Maegor to Aenys, there's a lot of turmoil, and I know
mhm,
you read all that stuff. Like it was a very bad time to start out the Targaryen reign, but he was the one that stabilized everything. So he's
mhm,
the benchmark that every subsequent Targaryen wants to live up to, you know.
mhm,
Um, uh, by the way, that the dragon that you see in this episode, when Damon is like singing his Valerian song and he's going up in this cave and then it sings this dragon. Well, that dragon is Vermithor. That's the dragon of King Jaehaerys. I don't know
okay,
if you knew that, Greg.
yeah.
So that's another old important dragon that's very important to the story as well.
Was he
Um,
keeping it hidden?
Well, I think it's funny. I found that through these books that it's kind of like there are some dragons that after their rider dies, they just kind of chill for like 30 years, 30,
and just
40
do
years
whatever they want.
and don't do anything. Yeah. And then like in 30 or 40 years, they may get a new rider and then they're out flying again. But beyond that, they're just kind of commissioned on the sideline, which I found kind of odd. But I mean, it makes sense. I'm glad they mentioned that in the story because otherwise I'd have been asking that question. So
Yeah, yeah. Um, what did y'all think of Damon choking Rhaenyra? Because by the way, a lot of people out of all the episodes, and J Stubbs is in the chat, he knows this too. People were like complaining a lot about this episode. Like there were some people that were really unhappy with a few things. One, in the book, Damon is present when Rhaenyra is giving birth to their unborn child.
mhm,
And a lot of people feel like the show, like George is a great character. He was the wonder and the terror of the realm. Well, the show doesn't really paint him that way. It paints him more of like a psycho, kind of chaotic bad guy more than anything else. So a lot of people feel like the show is kind of going out of its way to vilify him more than necessary. And a lot of people were kind of pissed off about him grabbing Rhaenyra by the throat. And Sarah touched on this earlier when she kind of mocks him, like, "Oh, he never told you." Well, you realize what's very important to Damon is what Viserys thought about him, and that Viserys never considered him to be his heir.
Mhm.
Because even if on accident Damon was to become the heir, he never told Viserys never told Damon about this incredibly important prophecy that coincides with the history of not only their house but all of Westeros and the entire world itself. And that really pisses him off. I mean,
That's
really, really.
he
Go
didn't
ahead.
consider him not only his heir, but not even his equal.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like if
yeah,
you want to start really breaking down, like points of view, he didn't even consider him an equal. And I think that was a very well portrayed subplot in this show. Like this season did
yeah,
a good number because not only did Viserys think that he was doing what he thought was right, but he did it in such an extreme measure that it hindered his ability to actually be a functioning king. Like he screwed up with the stepstones. Everything that Damon jumped in was like it was a trait that Viserys didn't have. And I think
yeah,
Viserys hated himself for that, but at the same time, to not ever see Damon as an equal or like an opposite to
yeah.
the equal was a real big downfall for him.
Mhm.
And also, they say earlier when Rhaenys shows up at the start of the episode to tell them what happened, the first thing out of Damon's mouth is they killed him.
Mhm.
They had him killed.
Mhm.
So not so he does have this love for his brother, and you saw that in the last episode when you know he they're at the dinner, but he also kind of stumbles on the way up the throne, and it kind of helps him to put the crown on his head. Like he does really care and have love for his brother,
Yeah.
and he is a very kind of a complex character in that way. So the fact that he feels that not only did they take his wife's rightful crown and probably kill his brother. But Rhaenyra in that moment is like trying to not go to war and be too hasty, and he acts out like, "Bitch, what are you talking about? Like, we
Right.
gotta murder these people," and he just acted out in a strong, strong way.
Well, they make it a point in the book to show the relationship between Viserys and Daemon,
Yeah,
like you see it progress, you see how it goes, but they make it a point to always say that no matter what, the two loved each other. Like when it came down to it,
yeah,
they would do what it took, like they would piss each other off. And I think they even said that Daemon actually, because there's a question of the succession to the throne where Rhaena is the queen who got passed over, or
yeah.
Rhaenyra is the queen who got passed over.
Rhaenys,
Like
yeah.
the
Mhm.
yeah, they like Damon actually fights for
Names.
Viserys to take the throne. Like he's like one of the main ones
Yeah,
who stands up and is like, no, this guy's the guy who's next in line. And it's kind of funny how that works out in the whole storybook. I'm not gonna go to the whole thing, but it's crazy how it worked out. But it kind of makes sense, and
yeah,
it definitely adds meaning to why it was such a big deal that Rhaenyra was named
yeah,
the successor, like based
yeah,
on what's happened in the book before, especially because they've had a council to convene. I even think they called it the rule of the
right.
101 or something like that,
Yeah, the
like
Council of 101.
council 101. Yeah, like they said that, like, no, the male is going to take this, like, period. So it should have been
Yeah,
Raynor or Lanor, like should have been it hands down,
yeah,
Lenore,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. And so that was how Viserys was trying to fix that by marrying Rhaenyra and Laenor. But it's crazy because like it makes that moment where he's fighting for her to be his heir that much more important because he's going against everything that's ever been in tradition in this
yeah.
household. You
He
know?
broke all this precedent,
Mm-hmm.
and you even in the episode when Damon, I mean not Damon, when Otto Hightower and all of his cronies they go up to Dragonstone, and he's like, Aegon bears the name of the conqueror. He has the conqueror's crown. He has the conqueror's sword. He rides a dragon. Like going through all these things that makes him more legitimate, and technically he's not wrong. like Viserys did pass a whole bunch of precedents in order to name Rhaenyra the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. So it was definitely an interesting decision by him. By the way, the author George R.R. Martin says that he likes Viserys better from the show than he does in the book. So
I do
that's
too, to be honest with you. I
Yeah.
mean, they don't touch on Viserys a ton in the book because, like I said, it's one chapter.
yeah.
Like you hear about his birth and the chapter before, and then you hear about him taking over and him dying. In
And
this
they
same
kind of
chapter.
make him out to be more of like a drunkard, like a hey, everybody take it easy, like
Yeah.
hey, everything's fine, like more of like a happy-go-lucky. Whereas in the show, Viserys has a lot on his mind, a lot of the time. He's very weighed down by the decisions that he makes, and I felt like they added some great complexity to his character.
Well,
Yeah.
Patty killed
I
it.
enjoyed
So
Yeah, he needs to win an Emmy. Like those awards even mean anything at all, but
Right.
he definitely should win one.
Well, they changed up his story too because, like, in the first episode of this show is when he cuts his finger originally, right on the Iron Throne. But in the book, he doesn't do it until what would be about episode 7 in the show.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
so, like, that doesn't
yeah.
even happen until like episode 7, and it's like a really quick progression, like of him cutting his finger, him having to get his fingers cut off, and then him eventually dying from this happens in like a 2-year span in the book. But in the show, they stretch it out from the beginning to like this whole 20 years.
And that's why, because it works out so much better that way for the show. You actually get to see him
yeah.
fall apart. And now that the king is dead, that Eric brings the crown to the queen. When they pick up with that little spot with at the funeral, oh, dude, talk about like Sour Patch Kid, man. I mean, you're burning one kid, and then like next thing you know, you're crowned in front of all these people who are taking a knee. I mean, like, you're still in pain, like physical pain and emotional pain, and not only that, but hey, here's FedEx, we got your crown.
yeah. So
Put it on
Eric
your head.
Cargill. Yeah, the episode was great. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else we need to talk about before we get to the main? Obviously, what we're getting to.
Well,
okay, yeah.
Like you brought up Otto showing up. Otto brought that one page from the the book that.
Allison
I
wanted
reading.
to ask y'all something about this question.
Go ahead.
But no, what did you? Okay, so maybe this is a little bit too in detail, but that paper that Rhaenyra ripped out early in the season and then gave to Alicent, and then that's what Alicent gives to Rhaenyra. But you can take it as two different ways. One is a reminder of, hey, we were best friends. You and I had love for one another. Even in the I know you've seen the Inside Episode stuff, Ross. There's even like a hint that they had even like a romantic relationship.
I thought they did from the beginning.
Yeah, like they were kind of into one another. And you can take it that way. But if you look at what the story is, like the words on the page, it's talking about Nymeria fleeing dragons from Valyria. That way her people don't get burned alive, and then burning the ships so that way no one can escape back to Old Valyria. So some people are interpreting it as both a sign of, hey, we were friends, but also don't fuck with us. You know what I mean? Like a little bit of a double play there.
I thought that's exactly what they were doing. I actually had to go back to remember to that episode to remember what they were talking about when she ripped it out.
Right.
I get both of them, like that. The depth of that play was so deep that it portrayed both of those things, because on the surface it very much was like, remember when we were kids and we got along and everything was perfect, we lived a great world and a great life before we had all the responsibilities. And then since these people die at like 50, a quick 10-15 years goes by, and all of a sudden now they're in charge, and they're literally talking about, if you screw with me, the Empire will fall. What you think
Yeah.
it will be your namesake is going to fall apart and crush and crumble and burn in ash. And I thought that was a fantastic scene. That's why I brought it right back up, because it was a split second, and what it meant was the weight of that scene was ridiculous compared to the time that it transpired.
Yeah. And J-Stub says in the chat, and this is true, that Nymeria and her 7,000 ships, they're already in production on this show.
Mhm.
And Ross, I don't know if you, I'm sure you do, but Dorne from the show, like all of the Dornish people are descendants from Nymeria and her 10,000 ships, and they never conquered Dorne. And by the way, Greg, so before we get into this dragon thing, does Vagar make more sense now to know what this old bitch of a dragon has been through? Like, dude, like people were making jokes online that Vagar is having PTSD, like burning people alive in Dorne while she's like fighting Arax later. It's like she's been through so many wars and so many battles that she's just this old battle hardened dragon that's quick to anger and quick to violence, you know. But I wonder if it kind of makes more sense now after reading everything that she went through, from Aegon to Maegor and so on and so forth.
It does. Like I said, it's crazy to think about how dragons can just, like, with nobody to ride them, can just chill for 20, 30 years, no problem.
Yeah,
You know, just
yeah.
be in existence and just chill. But this book has really opened up the dragons thing for me, because, like, one, I thought it was funny how quickly Vagar, what's his name, Aemon, like, got on Vagar. And I guess when in the book it's the same thing. It's just a real quick passage of how he did it, and bam, he's on there. I'm like, okay, so it doesn't take much to convince a dragon to let you ride him. But once you ride them, I guess you're bound to them, kind of like an avatar with their little wing things.
If it lets you ride, you're the only person that it's gonna let ride.
Okay. So that was pretty cool. But like, honestly, man, I'm more interested in Balerion. Like, that story with that dragon, like the one that was bigger than Vagar. Like, I know we saw the skull of it in this, and you know, through the book, I've already gotten to the point where he passed away, which is crazy. But there's more story with Vagar in this book that I want to know if it has something to do with anything that happens in the future in Game of Thrones with one of Jaehaerys's daughters, which I'm going to wait to see, because I think it does, but I'm not sure.
If you're talking about what I think you're talking about, you're very perceptive, bro.
Okay, cool.
Like,
That's
very,
cool.
very perceptive, especially since you don't know a lot about Game of Thrones. But we'll cross that bridge when
we need to do a podcast on the book, because the book is so extensive, man. We could talk about it for hours.
Dude, I'm down, bro.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Yeah.
Just let me know when.
But there is definitely a scene with one of Jaehaerys's daughters and Balerion, where I'm just like, they leave it very vague what happens, and I'm like, wait a second. I kind of know what happens in the future of Game of Thrones. I'm wondering if this is connected. So it's gonna be interesting to see if it is.
I gotta be honest with you. I'm really saddened by the fact that you two haven't watched Game of Thrones and you don't get to experience everything in like the same progression as the rest of us have. Because I mean, it's just like when you were telling Cody earlier about like Star Wars. Like, where do you start now?
Right.
With Game of Thrones, you were gifted dragons in the very, very early seasons.
Yeah. But you really gotta wait to get to them.
Yeah,
and
you gotta put your work in. You gotta put your hours in order to get to full-blown dragons. Yeah. And so now here you are, like, you're experiencing these things, and the stories are still the same. You're at a point to where they said that it was when dragons flew to war, everything burned, and that was all passing. Like, that's so historical to a point to where lifespans are so short that a bunch of that's been forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
dragons aren't really really truly remembered in the Game of Thrones
Yeah.
seasons. And
they make it a point in this book, in the books too, for the Fire and Blood book, about most people have never seen a dragon.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of these things that is just a myth. Like, because I mean, there's honestly, like, realistically, there's what, like 15 of them in the world, in like a 300-year span
There were
in the entire world. So I
by the
mean,
time of the dance, there were 17.
okay, yeah. So I mean, and honestly, that's still not that many to cover an entire world. You know,
Right.
so like they even talk about in this book that like most people never seen him. Like when King Jaehaerys would fly in on his dragon, like people would gather in crowds because they'd never seen a dragon before,
Oh,
and they were so
dude.
happy to see the king. You know, it's like, oh, cool. You know,
So look, this Sunday before the during the post game show, Greg,
Mhm.
I'll have my new book, but I'll have my Fire and Blood and my World of Ice and Fire book. I'll have it on my desk in the background. But you haven't even delved into that. Because World of Ice and Fire kind of shows you a little bit into old Valyria, back when the
Okay.
Valyrian freehold, and there were hundreds upon hundreds of dragons and numerous different families that were dragon riders, and like they ruled the whole continent, and that's why Daenerys the Dreamer, who was a descendant of Aegon the Conqueror, that's why the Targaryen dreams are so important, because she foresaw the seven flames, which is like the seven erupting volcanoes of Valyria that like literally destroyed the Valyrian freehold forever. So that's why the prophecy and the dreams are so important to the Targaryens, because it saved their family. So with all that said, at one point in time there was so many dragons, but now like there being only 17, that's literally only because the Targaryens were dreamers and they were able to get the hell out with their dragons and land on Dragonstone before it hit the fan.
Yeah, J Stubb says Dorne was never taken. It was brought into the Seven Kingdoms by marriage. 100% correct. And I actually know that. I get that reference. Yeah. Actually, there were, what, 4 Dorne Wars they talk about in the book, at least?
Oh man, so look, then the Fire and Blood stops at a certain point, but the World of Ice and Fire gives you a little bit about all the later Targaryen kings that lead up to the Game of Thrones books. And dude, coming up soon, there's this guy named Daeron the Young Conqueror, and his whole thing is we're gonna conquer Dorne, and it's basically the Westeros version of Vietnam, just a senseless, pointless war where everybody dies and nothing good happens. And there are no dragons too, so it's all just pitch battle in the desert sands, and it's brutal. I hope that they do those stories later on down the road in
Right.
later seasons of House of the Dragon. That would be awesome.
Well, they definitely could.
Circle back to where we were on this episode. Let's talk about it. Let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Let's do
All
it,
right.
man.
Fall right into the point where you got Rhaenys trying to figure out what in the hell is going on with them. And when I say them, I mean everyone in the black dragon suits, right? You turn around, Corlys is back mystically, thanks to the wonderful like cinematography magic of the world. They're able to come together and be like, hey, you know what's cool? War's about to happen. We should probably pick a side so that we don't die. That would be cool. They pick a side. All of a sudden, everyone's cool with the sons coming up and being the two that are going to go spread the good word of the Book of Mormon here. Like what? That moment was the moment where I'm like, oh, well, someone's going to die.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I've watched enough of this to understand this is the moment where they tell you who's going to die.
Yeah.
And you just get to narrow it down from the 100% to 2.
Right.
So,
Whoever the camera follows, you know, is going to die. Yeah. So, but let's talk about that scene. Like, because, okay, so we'll get into this. This is the big dragon fight. I guess this is kind of like the big fight of the finale, which
everything was building up to this.
Yeah. And this is almost the moment that starts the war, basically. This is the moment that starts the war. It's the moment that starts the war. So it was cool. You sent me that tweet the other day of, and I don't know if it was in the extras or like what it was, but it was somebody narrating the last 10 minutes of this episode
Yeah.
and condensed in like a 3-minute scene, and it's somebody narrating it from the book and
So
how it's portrayed from the book
Ross will know
to like the film.
the voice actor that was doing that in that clip was Robert Baratheon from season 1 of Game of Thrones.
No shit.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so again, it's filled with spoilers. But if you guys did want to, like in the DVD extras of one of the Game of Thrones season, they did a full 20-minute animated story on the Dance with Dragons, and it's narrated by different people from the show
That's right.
throughout it. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's incredible, man.
Okay.
Like
I'll check it out.
Joffrey does one at one point. Dude,
shit.
there's I know, dude. There's so many of them. It's actually really great. But yeah, dude, just the feel of it was perfect. I felt they hit the nail on the head.
Well, the only problem I have with this last scene, right? Okay, so Rhaenyra's son gets to who is it? The Stark's house, the House of Stark, and
Baratheon.
Storm's End.
Storm's
End.
End,
Okay.
and that's House Baratheon.
Okay, Baratheon. Okay, so he gets there, and like as soon as
That
you
was
park your
Lucerys.
dragon,
Was it Lucerys or Jacaerys?
Lucerys.
That was
Lucerys?
yeah, Lucerys. Lucerys on it. Yes, that was Lucerys.
Luke or Jace, whichever one you want to call it. Let's
Luke.
keep it
Yeah,
short.
that was-
here.
that was-
Luke.
Yeah, Luke. That is easier.
well, as soon as you park your dragon and you see,
Yeah, because that's what you do. You valet that
you
motherfucker.
see what's his name right there? Like, aren't you
Oh,
just
Vagar,
handing,
yeah. Like,
Vagar, aren't you just handing the note over and being like, deliver this for me? Or sending the raven at that
Yep.
point? Like, I'm not going in. Like, are
Hey,
you
open the
kidding me?
door so I can yell the message from here.
This guy that I know wants to kill me, that's bigger than me and has a dragon that's 95 times the size of my dragon, is here. No, I'm not walking in that door. And maybe it's an honor thing, but I'm not walking in there. You know, like there's no way.
Well,
in hell.
things were very different back then. You know, they made the point to say that, you know, like he's here to speak. He's not here to fight. And,
Right.
you know, that was exactly what his mom said. Like, you're not a warrior. You are literally going there to spread a message. All that you have to do is speak. And so as a messenger, we've seen already in this specific show this season where Daemon, you know, beat a messenger up, bringing the word of his brother about the war. Like Viserys was going to show up and save the stepping stones.
mhm.
And he got pissed off and beat the dude, right? Like, that's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to shoot the messenger. That's the phrase. But what happens? Aemon thinks that he's better. Aemon thinks that, you know what? We were just installed as the power in this world. So I pretty much can do whatever the hell I want to do. And he tries to. And just, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but
Oh, good. We're
the
diving into it.
cockiness with this character, with the moment that he goes from that, the moment that he goes from thinking that he can get the kid to screw, that he can just affect him, you know, like, you're going to cut your eye out or you're not going to walk out of here. And then, like, thankfully, you know, Baratheon was just like, no, not in my hall. That's not happening. I don't understand how they got on Dragonback, and next thing you know, they were right up to each other. I guess, you know, one gets more air miles.
Yeah.
I think Vagar's much
Gallon?
faster. Yeah.
Yeah. But what, you know, to see the childlike behavior on Aemon's face until he's faced with death, and that complete switch just changing him, that
Mhm.
moment to where he's like, oh, I fucked up.
Yep.
That
you wanna
wasn't
say
supposed to
something?
happen.
Can I play this real quick? I just shared this, Greg.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can throw this up real quick. I think you guys are gonna laugh, and it's just funny because Rossi just said this. This is how it did.
Yes.
What?
I'm turning around. Yep. That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I said that to Jay Stubbs because I thought it was hilarious.
That'd have been the
But-
best action.
that definitely would have been the best course of action. But okay, so I mentioned the other two moments where people were pissed off at the show with Damon, but the other moment that people were pissed off at, and you haven't read it yet, Greg, but it's not really that much of a spoiler. In the book, it's made to seem like Aemond is just this Terminator. Like he's just got this ruthless, vicious intent, and it's very much made to seem like Aemond and Vagar very much intended to kill Luke, whereas this episode throws that entire thing on its head.
Yeah,
Now it
kinda
just
does.
now it kind of seems like Aemon was trying to bully him, which it is still his fault because he was like his massive dragon to go after this young boy and a much
Right.
smaller dragon. So he
Like, what do you
definitely has,
expect? Yeah.
he definitely has some culpability in what happens without question. But then, like, it makes it a point when Luke is getting ready to leave, he goes up and starts talking to it and says, "Mind me, you have to listen to me, because it's with the bad weather and Vagar's right over there. Like, you have to mind what I say." Well,
Mhm.
dragons, it's funny how earlier in the season, Viserys says to Rhaenyra, we're only under the illusion that we control these dragons. We don't control these dragons at all. And you see that from both Luke and Aemon,
Mhm.
because, Aemon is flying along and doesn't see Luke and Arax. And then all of a sudden they come out of nowhere. And because Arax felt threatened, if a dragon feels threatened, they're gonna go after what's threatening them. They are alpha predators. Like they don't know anything else but to fuck you up. So Arax burns Vagar, sends the fireball at him, but you hear Luke say, "No, mind me, Arax. Don't do that." Like he kind of knows that his dragon kind of fucked him over in that moment. Well, then Vagar starts having those Dorn/Vietnam flashbacks versus the all must kill.
That
And
Kill
just
Bill music starts playing.
yeah, and dude, and Vagar just goes crazy, and you hear Aemon, um, telling Vagar, "No, no, don't kill him." And by the way, this is a testament. Remember at the start of the episode, or episode one, Randy says, they're all summer nights. None of these nights have ever known true battle because of just the old king Jacaerys. They've never known war, so all of these people, they're not battle hardened. Whereas Vagar has been through many battles, and Aemon has never been through them. And in that moment, if you notice, he doesn't speak Valerian to his dragon. He speaks in a normal tongue. He's
Mhm.
like talking to it normally. And it kind of goes to show that Aemon, as a character, is also not battle hardened. He
Mhm.
might be a dragon rider, but he has never ridden his dragon to battle and to fight other people, let
Mhm.
alone with a monster like Vagar. So I actually enjoyed the fact that instead of it being this malicious intent by Aemon, who's just this ruthless, murderer killer, it's like he didn't intend to actually do that, and it was his own, you know, his green abilities, not being so, no pun intended, not being so battle worn that he wasn't ready for that moment because he's never been in a battle like that.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I thought it was an incredible touch. The fact that they did that. I don't know what y'all think, but I loved it.
No, that really was a nice touch. I didn't have that knowledge going in because I'm actually starting that chapter tomorrow about where
Yeah.
right at this moment where it starts off. But I thought it, I thought it was cool they did the chomp instead of like burning him up. Like I thought for sure with
Yeah.
the dragon they're going to use the effect of the fire and they're going to burn him up and something's going to happen. The chomp was cool.
Not
Like
only that,
just
but he
a
didn't eat him.
monster fucking chomp. It was awesome.
Yeah, he literally just bit him to kill him.
Mhm.
That was, Whereas you see, we talk about like that first episode of Life and Death for Tales of the Jedi. The whole purpose is you kill for food and blah blah blah. Well, like he just straight killed him.
Yeah.
Like there was no other intent other than like he put fire in my face. Like okay, like now
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah,
fuck around and
dragons have
find
no
out.
allegiance to each other.
Yep.
I'll tell you that.
And
No
a lot of
allegiance to each other
people
at all.
were kind of upset, like that it wasn't canonical. But even in I believe it's a Clash of Kings, like Daenerys, she mentions like when you ride a horse and you whip its left side, it's gonna go right because it's meant to go away from battle. But if you smack a dragon, one, it might not even give a damn because it's like it has dragon skills and it doesn't even get hurt. But if you whip its right side, it's like, oh, it turns right because it's going to annihilate you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times when she just has no control over Drogon in the story. So um, it doesn't, it's not like it doesn't make sense. It totally does.
Right.
And, you know, and Greg, now that you know how the book is written, I'm totally fine with the show taking liberties like that in that moment to humanize the characters because it did humanize Aemon to me as a character. That he isn't just some cold-blooded monster, kind of like he's depicted to be.
Mm-hmm. No, I 100% agree. I mean, it's funny too because like this show does a good job of portraying one character as a bad guy, but then when you really get to know this character, you're like, well, he's not really bad. He just is blunt,
Yeah,
and you know,
Welcome to the universe, bro.
yeah, he just doesn't candy
yeah,
coat things. You know, like this guy's like what he's saying is absolutely right. He's just not sugarcoating it for you. Like he's not worrying about hurting your feelings. Like this is how it is. So it's like I feel like when you look at it, Aemon should be king 100% over his brother.
Yeah, well,
Over
yeah,
Aegon, and it's like, well, I
but
mean, that's just the way things were, and I feel like that's the way it kind of was with Viserys and Daemon.
yeah.
In the book,
Second
they talk about
sons
all the
and
time
them.
how Daemon was so much more fit to be king. He was a better fighter and a better like in the show they make it seem like Viserys rode dragons a lot, but realistically he rode was Boromir
Valerian.
Balerion. Yeah, he rode Balerion until it died, and then he never rode again. Like
Well,
that was it.
he rode one time. He rode him around the city, and that was it. And did you get to that part too where they're like, you can get sick, where it's not safe for them to fly anymore because they're so heavy that when they land, they can really hurt themselves. Like they never stop growing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so but like, and that's why there's a difference between Balerion and Vagar, because Balerion is this infamous dragon, but at the end of his life, dude, he's just kind of chilling. He's like
Mhm.
a curmudgeon old man, you know. Whereas even into Vagar's old age, this old girl is starting fires,
Getting it.
quite
Yeah.
literally, you know.
Hmm.
Norman, she
Oh, yeah.
doesn't seem happy about it. But I'll tell you right now, like the way that they displayed Arax falling, like the pieces and everything else, like I
Yeah.
thought that was actually really good. I thought
Oh, yeah.
the visual of the whole scene was really good. And yeah, it's not the last scene, but that visual meant just as much as the expression on Rhaenyra's face to me. Like they went very much hand in hand to. That's why I said I wanted that one little bit extra, like at the very end, to where
Mhm.
she was just say like burn them all or kill them all or something, like go full scorned woman mom mode and like beat the shit out of everybody.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll address with this, and somebody brought up in the chat earlier about how did Rhaenyra know that what had happened. I think you got to use a little movie magic with that. But I know that in the book, or at least from the audio part I heard from the clip you showed me the other day, they do describe it as like the people in what was his name, Barmere, or not I keep wanting to say Barmere, that's
Baratheon,
Lord
Storm's
Baratheon.
End.
Baratheon,
Yeah,
Storm's
they describe it as they saw flames in the sky and they heard screams.
Yeah.
So you don't necessarily know what happened, but this book, that's
Yeah.
what this book is about. Is like being very vague about things because there's not everybody there with camera phones to videotape everything and tell you exactly what happened. It's
Thank God.
what these people heard and what the person who was recording the information put down.
Yeah.
And that was what they said, was that they saw flames in the sky shortly after both of them left and they heard screams. So
Well, when little Luke never made it home,
and then one
started
doesn't
to
make
wonder.
it home. Exactly. Yeah. So something's got to be up then. You got to know something's going on. But
Final thoughts. What do you think? What do you want to see going forward?
Sarah.
Talk about it.
Well, the thing that's so funny to me about this whole series thus far is everything that's happened has. I can think of two vital points, like when Allison thinks Viserys is talking about her son Aegon, and then also where you have Aemon, which dude should have just built a bridge anyway and got over that shit. Because okay, you lost an eye, but you gained a dragon. I mean, you gained something more important than your freaking eye. But because him being still a kid, you got to remember he's still a kid. I mean, even though he looks 30,
I think he's like 15
still a
or
kid.
16. Yeah, at that point.
He
Yeah.
looks
He
like
still
he's
has
30.
that
You're right.
adolescent mindset of I'm gonna get you, like that whole bully, type thing. He's like, you were shitty to me, I'm gonna be shitty to you. And look what happened. So I'm just really curious to find out, like, in going into the second season, how many other like misconstrued situations are gonna totally fuck shit up. Because if you think about it, all this happened because of misconstrued or miscommunication.
Yeah.
I think that most of the time in life, major things, fights and things
Yeah,
that happen
absolutely.
are generally because of that, though, like a misunderstanding
the
of
smallest,
something.
the largest wars are started over the smallest stuff.
Things. Yep.
And this universe plays on every little bit of that.
Which just like in this universe is it's fantasy, but at the same time, it's almost kind of history too. Because like even though yes, things weren't run exactly like this, it very much runs in line with the way things used to be for people back in the days.
I mean,
like
it's fictional history to a fantasy point of view is exactly what it is. I mean, like it's just enough to give you the idea of like what you're comfortable in, but dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it even shows progression of different things. Like Jaehaerys's wife, she fights against the right of the first night from kings, or like prima nocta, I guess what we would call it. Like that was a thing. Like the king would just be able to deflower whatever woman he wanted to on her wedding night. And then like throughout the book, you see her holding councils with women.
The first
getting to
night,
know women. And like she's like, no, we need to announce this. Like this is done. And they do. So it's like it's crazy how it works out, but it's cool to see progression. Like I said, if you read the book, you see the building of like a very primitive household from the beginning to like an empire at the end, where they even talk about there's chapters on them building roads and stuff like that, like the importance of infrastructure and sewers. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy how it breaks. This is like a historical a chronological history of the universe. Like it's pretty crazy. So really, really.
Not only that, it's it shows the religion deflection, and it shows how the Targaryens thumped back against the way that everyone else thought religion should be, and how much of a stand religion actually took to denounce all of their like bad behavior. So to keep going forward with that.
I find it funny in this universe how quickly they like just whatever the septum say or whatever the seven says, they're just like, whatever, we're gonna do our thing until it comes to certain rules like marriage. No, you don't cheat on your wife, which I agree with, but it's like there's certain things like we're gonna marry whoever the hell we want to, but you better not cheat on her. It's like, well, okay, I get you. You hold certain standards in some points, but not in others. I got you. Okay, no problem. But it's all what you say. This show is awesome. This show has made me want to watch Game of Thrones. I'm going to actually, after I finish Fire and Blood, get all the Game of Thrones books. Cody, didn't you say each book was one season?
Roughly, I think it's what it equates out to.
So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch one season and then read a book, and then watch one season and then read the book. Because like I like the idea of knowing what's happening and like seeing it play out in the words, in my mind based on what I've seen and what I feel like it's happening. So because this chapter I read today was the most interesting. Like I was so intently into this chapter, I misdelivered so many pieces of mail. I had to go back. It was funny.
Hey, but when you do read this chapter, there are quite a few differences, and there's one in particular regarding Aemond and the build up to this dragon fight. And I won't spoil it, but it is funny. Like it is genuinely hilarious because it's like it's kind of stereotypical, but at the same time, it's also just like really funny that's what is part of what provoked Aemond. But yeah, just whenever you read it, man, you're not bugging me. Just message me whenever you're like.
So I'm messaging like 20 times a day, like, dude, this just happened.
Dude, I'm down for it, man. Because yeah, like I said, I don't know too many other book readers. I know Jay Stubbs is in the chat; he has. But yeah, I love that you're because you've been so excited about reading Fire and Blood. I've gone back and I'm reading all the. Um, I actually got 2 of the free audiobooks today because when I was like 23, I found PDFs of all of the books, and I
Okay.
literally read all the books on PDF before season 3 premiered. So after season 2, I binged all the books. It probably lasted me a little bit longer than just a year, but I read them pretty fast, like right up until season 3, and I fell head over heels in love with Game of Thrones and the world and the
Mm-hmm.
story. And but now I'm listening to the audiobooks. I've
That's
read the
amazing.
first audiobook, the first Game of Thrones. Now I'm back on A Clash of Kings, and then A Storm of Swords will be after that. So I'm back in it, man. I'm pumped.
I'm down. I'm excited to get into it too. Like I said, this has opened up a whole new world for me. People have been telling me for years to check out Game of Thrones, and I'm not gonna lie, man. Until DC came on HBO, I just never paid attention to any HBO properties. And then once
Really?
DC teamed up with HBO and I bought HBO Max, I watched Breaking Bad. Like I watched all these. Well, maybe Breaking Bad went on HBO, but I watched all these shows that people told me that I needed to watch at some point in time that I never did, and I was like, wow, yeah, I should listen to people more.
Rebels.
Like I should definitely listen to people more, which is why I'm watching Rebels right now. So, but yeah, man, loving the show, Cody. I'm so glad you like it too. It is cool to have kind of a book partner to go into this with, and I have 2 of my friends. One of them is reading the book, and one of them is listening to the audiobook at the same time. I'm doing it too. They're huge into Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, so it's cool to have people to talk to while you're going through this.
Yeah.
Because I just get so
You have
excited when I see
millions of
something.
people watching the show with you. You can literally talk to anyone.
That's true. That's true.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
just really, really fun, man. And I'm loving this series. I'm loving this universe, and I have so much more to dive into, and
Yeah.
I am going to in the future
You
for
know how
sure.
the other day we were talking to Drew on Twitter.
Mhm.
I convinced Drew to get the audiobook of Fire and Blood
Yeah,
too.
he told me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's perfect, dude. I'm I'm converting people to my cult of thrones. You know.
I would
I'm into it.
recommend if you want to listen to audiobooks, it is an awesome feature. Nathan got me into audiobooks about 2 years ago, and ever
It's
since
the
then I can't
best.
stop. It really is the best. If you sign up for Audible, you get like 2 books for free. Then you get like a free book every month. So, you just every month buy a new book, or you can just buy new books if you want to. But like there is a ton of great stuff out there, man. And audiobooks are for me like definitely the way to go. Like I would rather honestly read an audiobook than read a book any day of the week. Yeah.
You can multitask. Like
Oh yeah.
you can do other shit and listen to the story at the same time. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's definitely awesome. I recommend it to anyone and everyone. And
Yeah.
um I'll give a I won't spoil anything, but this show is gonna shock the world when Blood and Cheese happens. I'm not gonna say what it pertains to, and Greg, you're very, very close to it.
Okay.
Did you
But
just say
once
blood and cheese?
Blood and Cheese,
Okay.
yes, and
Just want to make sure I got the verbiage right.
yeah, Blood and
Okay.
Cheese, and it's like again, I won't spoil that either. I know Ross knows I'm talking about, like, but like it should be equivalent to the Red Wedding, and like what happened in Game of Thrones. It's like a what, dude? Okay, yeah,
Okay.
but it's about to be insane. I can't wait to see uh what they do with this show.
Yeah. We do have a while before we hear anything. I mean, scheduled for 2024, but we know that things always change with this kind of stuff, especially with the
Yeah,
popularity of this show. I would hope they're going to push it forward, but if not, I'll be here in 2024 hopefully, and I'll be ready to watch it. And by
I'm
then,
gonna
I should
tell
be caught
you.
up completely on Game of Thrones.
I'm gonna tell you. If you come across something, avoid it. If you come across news or if you come across anything, I mean, other than like if they're gonna bring in new
yeah,
actors or any of that, just avoid it. Like it
Yeah.
makes it so much better. Don't manifest the world in your head. Don't try to create something that's not there, because when you see it, it just look. The show came out in tandem with Rings of Power,
And blew it out of the water. Yeah.
It did, man.
It did. It blew it out of the
really
water.
did.
I liked Rings of Power, but it blew it out of the water. Like,
There's
did
so
blew
much
it
more
out of the
that,
water.
like, I can't compare my. I keep calling it Game of Thrones love. That's just how I'm going to refer to it as, to anything else. I've got 30 plus years of Star Wars lore experience and everything else. I love the MCU. I'm hoping that, like DC catches, a breath of fresh air, but this is like in its own tier off somewhere else for me. And it's magnificent, and I've always loved it. And I mean, just wait, just wait impatiently, but happy, and knowing that, you're going to get to jump back on this ride again and go all over again.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, do y'all have anything else you want to say about House of the Dragon, or are we going to wrap this one up for a couple of years and come back to it?
Oh, that hurts.
I know it does, doesn't it?
No, look, if you're gonna get into the books like this, we need to figure out some way to do some kind of like podcast about it.
I can definitely do some small shows.
We need refresher episodes.
Yeah.
Greg, especially if you're talking about taking it season by season, like that's probably a good refresher
I'm
episode.
down for that.
To see what happens. Take a month, watch 10 episodes, and then each month or two we can kind of talk about that season. And if you want to read
I
it,
want
or whatever
Sarah
case
to
may be.
go back and watch Game of Thrones. I think Sarah.
I think she's got it in her.
I see you making that face, Sarah. But Sarah, look, just like I was right about this, I'm right about Game of Thrones, and you're gonna love it. You're gonna get into it. I promise. Yep. Just stick with it. It to me, it's one of my favorite stories ever told.
Well, I will say, after I have watched the first episode, and like I said, I got halfway through the second one, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to push that one because it's got a totally different feel than
it's a ride,
Dragon.
Though.
It
is such a ride.
Feel.
Yeah, I've actually watched the first episode of Game of Thrones too, and then whenever the ends with the brother fucking the sister, and I didn't know anything about this universe then, and I was like, what kind of show am I getting into? But now that I've learned a lot more about this universe, okay, that's normal.
Yeah,
I guess.
normal.
It's normal.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah. So.
The only other thing that I would say is there's so many tidbits, like each and every little thing that we watch, like people with their experience and everything else. But you have Damon, right? I mean, he played Doctor Who. Matt Smith is a fantastic actor. Mm-hmm. In the little background behind the scenes stuff, it tells you that you have the King Jaehaerys. He is actually Michael Carter. And for Star Wars fans, he's the original Bib Fortuna. So he is that same actor. And, of course, like Viserys plays in all sorts of stuff. Like, I don't know if any of you guys watch Peaky Blinders or like the Bourne Ultimatum movie. He's in that.
It's a great movie.
The most crazy one is Otto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dude, this dude's been in everything, man.
He's the kicker in The Replacements, bro.
Yes.
He's Nigel, the smoking kicker.
Really?
In The Replacements.
Crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
Now I see that. I'm like,
I
that was
didn't want to say
years
anything
ago, though, but
until we finished the season, because the moment I saw him, I'm like, no way. And that is
what
him.
else has he been in, Ross? There was something else that he was in.
He was Dr. Connor in one of the Spider-Man movies. He played
he played Dr. Connor, in Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man?
Yeah.
I remember him from Notting Hill because he was that one crazy
Yep.
guy. I remember, that's where I remember him from. I was like, that was in his underwear.
That's
But
so crazy.
no
'cause I would
one-
never see
you're right,
any
he
of
is
those
in
kids said it.
his underwear.
Yeah.
No one has a track record like Sir Harold. That dude has a voice acting list that is probably, I mean, in the right font, a mile long. You know, he played in Aquaman, he played in The Witcher, he played in Preacher. He's done voice acting for so many different things. But I mean, he is all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Jay Stubbs mentions Little Nicky. Have y'all seen Little Nicky?
With
Yeah.
The Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the brothers in that movie too. Dude, that guy's awesome. He's such a great actor, man.
That
And
is crazy.
he killed Otto Hightower. That was the casting was incredible.
Yeah.
They killed it. I hope they win some Emmys. Again,
They
to what
should.
point they even matter? It's like whatever, but they deserve it for sure.
Well, most of the shows and movies that win those awards, I've never even heard of, and I do a podcast on shows and movies. I've never even heard of that. So yeah,
right.
but then again,
what was the one that just happened? The Saturn Awards, like who watches the Saturn Awards? But like
I've never even heard of Saturn
all
Awards.
sorts of different things came out of it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And dude, who's like, I'm so proud of my Saturn Award. Like, I'm so honored, you know.
Yeah.
No, Tony, it's not Patty. It's the guy that plays Otto.
His name is it's
Reese,
Reese Ifans or Ifans or however you say it. It's RHYS. It's a weird first name.
I got it's RHYS Ifans IFANS.
Yeah, but I remember him being the kicker because I love The Replacements. I think that movie is fantastic. I love
one of the
it.
best football movies ever made. Yes.
Yeah. And so when I saw him show up as Otto, I'm like, I paused the episode when I saw him because I'm like, no way, like it. And that was probably the only one. I'm not a Doctor Who fan. That was probably the only actor in this movie or series that made me do that.
I would have never even thought about that if you hadn't said it. But now that you've said it and I'm looking at it, I can't unsee it. Yeah. I can't unsee him doing a dance and lighting a cigarette when he makes a kick, you know? So it's like, well, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all I got. Watch the behind the scenes stuff. It's really good. They're real short clips. Not short clips, but they're like 20 minutes or so. It's real good behind the scenes stuff. So I recommend it.
Read the book. It's a nice 26 hours of your life to spend. Well, listen to the book. It's a nice 26 hours. If you read, you may be able to read faster than that, but I doubt it. Yeah, man. Love the series. Cody, anything else you got to say about House of the Dragon? Say if not, we'll probably move on here in a minute.
No, just I'll recommend a YouTube channel. There's a guy named Alt Shift X, and he does incredible A Song of Ice and Fire videos. And he delves deep into the lore, but also for every one of the episodes, he did a breakdown of the episode and shows you all the things that you miss. And he really does a deep dive. It's so eye-opening, and he loves it so much. Yeah, Alt Shift X is the name of his channel. I highly recommend it. He's incredible.
I will check it out for sure.
Well, Cody, I appreciate you coming on and talking about it, man. Like, it's been fun having you for these 10 weeks.
Yeah, man. We'll figure out some other way to
for
get
sure.
back on the show at some point in time. Yeah, man.
You can come back for all these little season updates. Not only that, we're gonna have to get an Arcane season 2 before long. So
yeah, man, dude. As soon as that happens, you know I'm down. I
yeah.
can't wait for that. But yeah, I love talking to you guys. Greg, Ross, Sarah. Sorry we all talk so much. You know, we're a bunch of loud mouths. But yeah, man. Y'all have a good night, and I'll be talking to you soon.
You too, buddy. I'll see you on
Bye,
Sunday.
Cody.
Bye.
later, man.
All right. I only got one more thing on my list. Well, I got two more things, but I don't know if we're going to get the last one. But one more thing on my list, major, and that's Andor.
Well,
Sarah,
fellas,
did you need to get out of here?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave y'all to that because I got to get up bright and early in the morning. But I will definitely jump in on the Andor conversation next week because we got plenty of it left.
Oh yeah, we've got a few more weeks that left.
All I got to say is I will leave you with this. After watching that episode, I'm like really I don't want to walk on bare floors with my bare feet.
No.
I'm not down with that now. I'm like no, give me carpet.
Made me feel weird stepping off my bed.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's kind of weird. Yeah, fellas.
Cool
All right.
deal.
Well, I will definitely catch you guys later, and yeah, have a good week. I'll talk to you later.
You too.
Bye, guys.
Sarah.
Later. All right, man. Then there were two. Let's knock it out. Let's talk about some Andor. We're traveling back into a galaxy far, far away. So, um, okay, so this is episode 7 of Andor. I think we
8.
covered 6 last. 8, is it? Okay.
8.
Is it 8?
Yep.
Okay.
Episode 8 is
That's right, 'cause 7 was the one we
Narkina
got
5 or whatever the name of the
Yeah.
planet is.
Okay, so episode 8. This show continues to keep me interested in what the hell's going on. Like, I have no idea what's happening next. We got some cool appearances in this one, and we got to see a little bit of what's going on with Andor. We got to see a little payoff from the lieutenant guy from the beginning of the show. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Cyril.
Yeah, and we actually we get to see some sparks of the rebellion here in different forms, and we see that this is a lot bigger than it's being led on, or at least that we've been known about since it's been going on. Like, in the background, there's a lot of infrastructure for this rebellion. It's like different factions, which is pretty cool. So, what do you think about this episode overall, man?
I think it told 3 really good stories. You had the Cassian being capture plot. I'll go into that like in depth later, but I mean, like, just the overall portrayal of it was timed perfectly with the other 2 plots in the story. The other 2 plots were the Deidre being on the hunt, so the ISB and Cyril and that whole subplot. And then you had the Ferrex planet basically being kind of like the rebel plot of the episode.
Right.
So this episode did a real good time. What's the word I'm looking for? It spaced it out perfectly. Like, it was able to combine each of those, because in the first part of this episode, I thought they were only telling 2 stories, and I thought that was going to be Cassian being caught and Deidre trying to figure stuff out. But then it started to unfold with a little bit of the rebel story, which made it a little bit, added a third dimension to it. It's my big thing, it, so I'm going to talk about it right off the bat. The music for this episode, there is something about that off-key synth that just draws such a sense of unease. Like, it does such a good job of putting you on edge, and it's time, like, it's not all offbeat synth. Like, it comes back into play with like full, well-sounding, well-rounded out music, and I think all of it, I can't say enough good things about this music in this show. I said watching it with earbuds in put on a whole entire different dimension, because we all have different ways that we like listening to things on our TV, right? You get a sound bar, it has movie mode, sport mode, music mode, or whatever it is that you want to listen to. When I think it was 2 weeks ago, I started watching this like with my earbuds in. I am not going to watch another episode of this without them in, because the music in this show is fantastic. It unfurls the plot on like a whole different dimension that the rest of it doesn't do. But beyond that, I mean, we can jump into the plot of this story.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Starts right off with Cassian as Keith is getting transferred to a planet. Once again, the audio in that scene with all of the ships running and him trying to, like, it adds to that, like, he doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know where he's going. He has no idea. He just got sentenced to 6 years in prison. I mean, imagine that. Imagine you walk the wrong way. There's plenty of countries in this world that do that. You walk the wrong way, and next thing you know, you have a sentence for years in prison. That happened, and then it jumped to, go ahead.
Well, can I ask you too, just thinking about that, we questioned in the last episode about his reasoning for being arrested and like how he really kind of got screwed in it. Do you think now, based on what we know or where he went to, this is just them rounding up bodies to work? Like, you're not doing anything. This is just the Empire rounding up bodies, calling them criminals, and making them work.
So there's been a lot of talk about, are they creating their workforce as much as they would like create their security force, the stormtroopers, right? The other, there's not another side to it. It's just that they've taken a zero tolerance stance on everything.
Right.
And
well,
so
the guy even says when he gets in there, he's like, "What are you in for?" And he's like, "Well, what'd you do?" He says, "Nothing." He says, "Yeah, we've gotten a lot of that lately." which made me think that they're just rounding people up. Like there's nothing
There's a
they're doing wrong.
lot
they're
of
just
things
rounding
they
people
say
up.
in that scene that are very
Yeah.
important. Like all of a sudden, they all like their sentences were doubled or had time added. You know, they heard all these things that were happening. They have no idea what's going on the outside. The outside's making moves that, you know, not even that like no one knows on the outside how fast these moves are being made.
Mhm.
So the people on the inside are seeing it all because they're getting, you know, an influx of personnel into the prisons. It's not something that is, you see the results quicker than you actually see why they need the results.
Mhm.
So when one thing screwed up, being the Aldani plot and them taking money, that whole thing put into the works. All these people now are under a zero policy rule or a zero tolerance policy rule.
Mhm.
With that, you had the conversation between Mon Mothma and Luthen to where Mon Mothma was like, people will suffer. And he basically said, like, I'm counting on it. You know,
Mhm.
like he's
And-
trying to use the suffering as the weapon
Right.
to unite, like you said, all of the factions of all of these separated people.
And unfortunately, that probably is the best plan. Like
It
it
is.
sucks to say it like that. Like you have to put people through suffering to get there, but that probably to unite people is the best plan to get it done.
When people don't agree, you know, you have to come back to that one thing of, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps the. We can all disagree on countless things in this world, but until we find things that unite us against the greater evil, we're not going to make any action because the world that we live in expects us to be so disoriented and ununified, I guess would be the better word,
Mm-hmm.
that we can't ever actually enact any sort of change. That's what they hope for. That's why in a world where you elect people, just like in this world, change doesn't get actually made until people make a big enough stink about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Well, I think they
hoping
even
that
say,
that stink is created.
yeah, there's even a point in this episode where maybe I'm just mistaken it for something else, but isn't there a point in this episode where somebody's saying something about we don't like this, and they're like, "Well, vote for new
Yeah.
people," and they're like, just kind of laugh, like, "Yeah, that's not that easy."
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like just saying
Well,
let's vote them out of office. Do you say that? And it
no, I
happens.
think that was Tales of the Jedi.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's
I think that's
something
where
like
that
that
came
where they
from.
were talking about that. Okay, so
But
But
no,
it's
I
Star
mean, this is
Wars.
the same
Yeah.
principle exists.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that's, you know, I'll go back to saying it again. When I asked for a political thriller, you know, I didn't know what I was going to be, what I was expecting in my head. But I mean, all of this truly is a political thriller. You know, you look at the events that transpired in, you know, episode 1 and how all of that turned into a simple blockade, putting someone in power to take over the universe and blah, 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 blah. Here we are. This time is the rebuttal to that. This time is the perfect moment for someone to come back and say, why is Palpatine becoming all this, what's the word I'm looking for? Grouping all these factions together to keep the Senate, to keep everything that he wants. And how is that working without populist consent?
Mhm.
How is that all working without populist vote? And why are people okay with it? I guess is that at the end of the day, that's the main thing. Why are people okay with it?
Unfortunately, that's kind of the way the real world works too. It's like the way it kind of works in America.
Yeah.
Most people won't vote because as long as they can get up and go to work and go get the stuff they want to go get and come home and watch what they want to watch, they're okay with everybody else making all the decisions for them. And to be honest, that's the way most people are. It kind of sucks because
There's a threshold.
You have way more control than that. But
Mhm.
most people are just okay being herded like sheep and being told this is what you'll do, this is what you'll like, and this is what you're going to do. And you know, as long as they don't get any harm to them, they're just going to go with that. And that's why evil can triumph like that.
And in this episode, you have the Cyril scene comes next. He gets taken by the guards. You know, like out of nowhere, he gets singled out. Cyril and Deidre have the conversation to where she's trying to figure out what's up with Andor. Why is he a thing? Why are we? why did you sacrifice, all these resources? Like, what really happened? He gets to find out that the other lieutenant basically, botched all of the records and all of the details of everything that happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
He tries to set the record straight. And I love the fact that he actually tried to take a stand for himself, to where he's like, like, I am good at my job. No one could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you can take good or evil and, put anything behind it. I mean, he was good at what he was trying to do with the information that he had. Was it right? That purely depends on your point of view.
Right.
Everything in life is, subjective to a certain degree.
Depends on who's carrying the stick. That's right.
Yep.
So
when he did that, he was basically let go. I mean, like he didn't have a whole lot left in this episode. I feel like it's going to come back full circle for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to have, I feel like Deidre's going to. I think Cassian's going to escape. We'll get to that point, but
we know he does.
It's going to cause it's going to cause Deidre to have to come to terms with the fact that she's not using all the weapons at her, all the resources at her hand disposal. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, damn it. I had something I wanted to say about that Sarek guy, but I can't remember what it was now. So I guess we'll just keep moving on. I'm sure I'll remember here in a minute. I don't remember what I was going to say. I think it's funny that they found Cassian Andor. They've got the name. They've got the picture. They know exactly who they're looking for and don't realize that you've already got that guy as a prisoner. Like you physically as the Empire already have that guy in a prison, which makes me wonder, do they not take fingerprints in Star Wars? Wouldn't that be the easiest? Wouldn't that be the easiest way to identify? I mean, I guess not every creature may have fingerprints, but at least with humans, they do.
I think that's twofold. Like we've been taught that chain code is like, like through Boba Fett and the other TV shows. Check out my chain code. Like it is who I am or who I say I am. All of a sudden, like it shows like almost like their DNA identification or some weird shit like that. Mm-hmm. I think it's twofold, and I think that it shows that how Cassian is smart enough to weave in and out without being detected. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also a failure of a system that's not ready to, like be in charge.
Right. This is the start of an empire.
Yeah.
Across the galaxy, not just a state or a country or a. Yeah, so I get that. Let's see. You know what? We haven't spoken about the Saw Gerrera moment yet.
Let's get to that first. Hold on. Because you got the prison. We get to see the prison with their tungstoid floors, and the whole entire time you have Cassian in this place eyeballing everything.
Right.
And I am right there with him. Like, if you put me in a situation I don't understand, my eyes are making a map. Like I'm trying to decipher everything. I want to know what's going on. The moment they tell you to kick your shoes off when he was on that ship, I'm like, that's not good. That's a sign of something bad.
And you see the other guys walking in the specialized shoes too. So you're like, okay, something's going on.
Did they remind you of something? Did those boots remind you of anything?
No, what?
They reminded me of the shoes that Super Mario Brothers put on in the live action Super Mario Brothers movie.
Okay. Now that you mention it, yeah, they do.
I know that they were insulated, but that's exactly where my mind went. I'm like, they look like those god awful boots.
Well, look, I've never been in prison, and I wouldn't try to make it out to be anybody who's ever been held captive against their will to be good. But didn't it seem like, with the exception of the floors that'll melt yourself, like for the most part, you got a pretty good jail cell. Like you got a nice clean room, you got unlimited food and water, you got a toilet, you got to work all day, 12-hour shifts, but beyond that, really didn't seem like that bad of a prison. Like, and once again, I say that because I'm not being held captive against my will there.
Yeah. Well, you should try prison out. I mean, I heard that there's an explosion in the end.
Yeah.
No, I think that they show that. They show that with Cassian and his 30-day time jump right then and there. That they show how much he's able to adapt and overcome and be a part of it. And you're right. Like, look, the comparisons have been made between being in prison and being in like a person in a capitalistic society.
Yeah.
they're not very different when you really look at it.
Right.
But look, he did exactly what he needed to do. He played the game, and then after that 30-day time jump that they did, that real quick little stint, he's sitting there eating his food, getting up, stretching for the morning, and boom, he's off for his next shift. Not only that, he's showing that he is no longer the weakest link in 30 days, and that old man becomes the weakest link, which we didn't discuss. Andy Serkis being the pit boss.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy. Caught me by surprise. I had no idea he was in this.
Perfect role for him, though. I love that role for him. I mean, it's his second role in Star Wars. Clearly, he played Snoke, but
I did not know
we
that.
get live action. Oh yeah,
I did not know he played Snoke. Okay,
he was all Snoke,
dude. I'd never seen him in anything I didn't like, to be truly honest with you. Like he's just
been making the rounds.
He's just amazing, man. Everything he does is fantastic, and I think he has some range. The guy, you look at his playing the Claw in MCU, great role. Like he embodies that role perfectly. And then even in this one right here, like he's a guy you kind of want to hate, but you want to love too. Like he's a guy that I want this guy in my back pocket, but at the same time, I hate this guy. Yeah. But he did a fantastic job. And I thought it was pretty cool because that's the way it would be. Like, it's the way it is in any situation like that. They pick one guy to lead everybody, I'm
going to say something blasphemous because I don't know the truth behind this, but did he play Gollum?
I think so.
I know that he played...
I think that was his first claim to fame. Like
I know he played Caesar in Planet of the Apes. And I know that he's been all over the place for his CG characters. But just like Snoke and everything else, like he's all over the place behind the map.
Yeah, he did. He played Gollum.
Okay, I thought so. But I love him as a live action character. I love what he brings to the screen. His face, his attitude, his acting. I love what he brings. And so I thought he was a great character for this. And someone on his team is going to make it out. We know, for anyone who's watched Rogue One, that one of the characters at his table is actually in Rogue One. If you don't know, then I'll leave it as a little bit of a
Yeah, I didn't realize that. Yeah.
But we get that. I would like to think that I'm going to make a little bit of a prediction. Something's going to happen. If it happens before Cassian gets out, then I think that days are going to be added to people's time. Yeah, sentence. And that is going to be like a defining moment because he said he had less than a year. He said he had 200 and something days.
Yeah.
If days get added to his sentence, I think he could be a pawn in Cassian's exit plan.
Escape. Yeah.
Yeah.
So pissed off with the system that he's like, fuck this, and I'm gonna fuck the system. Yeah. I get that. Yep. I did not know that somebody that was in that room was also in Rogue One. Is it the same actor?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. I love that they did that. Awesome. Well, I have to go back and watch it now. I got to go back and watch Rogue One just so I can see if I can figure out who it was.
I'll shoot it to you at the end.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it's going to come out pretty soon. I'm going to know who it is pretty soon. But that's awesome, man. This show's taking a lot of really cool turns in that direction. Great connective tissue.
They jump quickly to the Mon Mothma story. They're back to her trying to figure out how to raise money with her friend. I can't remember the friend's name at this point in time, but we get so many. We get discussions with Palpatine and like what he's doing. They're name dropping him like crazy. So I even think that there were some of them talking like jokingly talking about like Palpatine would. How could he overreach and blah blah blah? Like they're seeing these things, like now he's playing the Senate, not like the Senate as a whole. Now he's trying to, it's almost like he's establishing, not corporate greed, but he's establishing greed to like try to keep these people under his, I guess, direction at this point in time. We start off episode 4, A New Hope, with the discussion of how will the Emperor keep the systems in line without the governors and the senators and so on and so forth. And I think this is that transitional period where we start to see how he's trying to keep them fat and happy, as the words of this show and trailer have actually said, in order to keep them going until a point to where they're no longer necessary for his control. The ISB is clearly his weapon that is choking all the other systems. So what do? We have then we jump to Ferrex for that other side plot that I was talking about. His mom's about to die. You know, she's wheezing, she's dying, but you know, we see that through conversation that she's actually trying to pull like recon for the rebellion. She's trying to go out and see what's going on with like where the troopers at, how many are there per day, when shift change, and like all these other little details that she's trying to plot. It's funny because all of a sudden you see Vel and Cinta back. They're trying to hunt down Cassian, and they're using his mom and Bix as the weapon. Like at some point he's going to come back. Cinta's fine with staying there and hanging out, and she basically breaks down the fact that she's like a true realist to Vel. Vel wants love, and you know she's getting her heart broken by Cinta because Cinta's like, no, like here's the deal. I'm out to get these fuckers, and everything that I do is for that. At the end of the day, if I got some extra time on my hands to, you know, bump uglies on the side, that's what she does. And that's really, she lays it out for Vel. She's like, that's what this is about.
Right.
I have feelings for you, but my feelings of rage and like hate and everything else
take precedence. Yeah.
Yep. They are in the beginning.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Vel and the ones you're talking about are the ones that were on the heist with him.
Yep.
What is Bix? That's the name of the other character, his girl from back in the in his city in Ferrex. She's sending out like a Morse code signal.
Well, one little minor thing before we get to that.
Okay.
We find out that Luthen actually kind of wants Cassian dead too. Like Luthen didn't have big plans for Cassian. Luthen wanted a producer, and Cassian was the producer that he needed. He needed him to produce the mission.
Loose end, right?
Now he's a loose end.
Yeah.
And so the moment when Bix goes up to try to make a message or to send a message back out and say like, you know, you need to find Cassian, you know, his mom's about to die, blah, 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 blah. That's when that's the loose end. Like that's a loose end from that thing that you're just discussing right there.
Yeah. Makes sense. And then I guess the last thing, or really the only thing I can think of to talk about now is just the Saw Gerrera stuff. I know we were talking about whether we were going to see him or not, and we saw him in Rogue One as an old, aged, battle-torn, you know, kind of worn hard and put away wet type guy, you know. And he definitely looks younger and more spry in this one, or at least, and this is only, what, 5 years before that? So he must have gotten really jacked up in 5 years, which, I mean, I guess it can happen at any time. And when it happens quickly. So, but it was pretty cool. It's like, this is where you see that, like, okay, so there are different factions of rebellions coming up, and they haven't united yet to be the rebellion. They're just a bunch of different groups with the same interest that are organizing and trading with each other, which is funny that they're trading with each other. It's almost like MCU and Fox or Sony with Spider-Man. It's like, okay, we're doing the same thing here. Let's just team up and really make a kick-ass movie, you know? And I imagine they're going to get to that point. But you do see Saul reject what's
Luthen's offer.
Yeah, Luthen's offer, which is kind of crazy. I don't see any reason to do so. Like, what did you pick up on that was the reason that he rejected the offer?
So
pride.
Well, Saw's always been portrayed as a character who has not misplaced, but kind of like out of whack morals. He, you know, we learned from the Clone Wars, like at a fairly young age, he was shown the uglier side of all of this, and that he didn't want that to continue to happen. And so he started to see the writing on the wall early. And what happens with Saw is that, you know, the portrayal of him in Rogue One being so war torn and disfigured and everything else comes from his he's very much headfast. Like he rolls into things very, very quickly. He wants to get results. You know, he wants to do damage to the Empire. He doesn't believe in all the shit they're trying to bring along. And he doesn't believe that the only way to make that change is physically through war, through conflict, and everything else. Because he doesn't think they understand any other language. He's not wrong, but his tactics leave a lot to be desired.
Right.
And so, what I get from him, first off, the moment we see two tubes, and right behind two tubes, Saw Gerrera is going to show up. The conversation between Saw and Luthen keeps de-evolving because Luthen wants to. Yeah, Luthen wants to sell him some stuff, but Luthen's main purpose is actually to unite everybody. And
Right.
Luthen is an idealist who thinks that he can do so without the proper equipment. Like, he's not coming to the table with the right words and the right things yet because shit hasn't gotten bad enough for everyone to kind of unite behind one flag.
I think that's even when he even makes that statement is like he's counting on the people like suffering,
right?
Like in that conversation,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's. I mean, all of this was 100% true. I mean, we're living in it in our own real life. There are multiple things that are kind of reaching that point in our own real life. So when you see it on screen, you're like, huh, totally could happen because it is happening. I'm interested to see where they're going to go with it because I know that Saul has always been a thorn in the side for the rebellion, and I think with the knowledge that we already have from Rogue One, he's probably going to be an outlier that dips his toe, and we may get to see him dip his toe. I'm just not sure how much they got Forrest Whitaker signed up for, so I don't know what they're going to do with it.
I was wondering about that too. Being such a big name, I'd imagine he's probably going to come back for at least one more scene of something, but I don't know how much.
I think he would come back. I think he would come back regardless. I mean, I think he loves the character. I think he loves the role, and I think he loves the fact that he gets to do more with it.
Right.
I just don't know how much Gilroy and everyone else has in store for him.
Right.
And they do have to. I mean, they have the tiptoe line.
Yeah.
Because like I said, they set precedents for the fact that he's not liked by, well, he's not liked by anyone, like
right.
When Rogue One comes around, Saul is an outlier. So
Oh, yeah.
The only other thing that we have left is Bix and Deidre have a conversation at the end that we are really not privy to. But I mean, some bad shit's gonna happen. I love seeing the sadisticness of Deidre, like leave the dying. What was the guy's name? Pack, whatever his name was, in the chair. Like, don't take him away yet. Like, I want her to see him basically being tortured and not really mutilated, but just tortured.
Oh, you can imagine it's something bad, yeah.
And then I love, she flipped the script right off the bat as soon as Bix walked in. She's like, "What is? Get him out of here!" Like I love that two-facedness, and so I thought that was really good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I love the direction they're going with this show, man. Like I said, Andor it's fantastic, and it just sucks because I know so many people who are like, "Well, I'm waiting until I can binge it all." I'm like, "Well, it's a lot to binge at one time," but I can't say I haven't sat down and binged like a show like that at all. But I don't know. It's one that I want to explain to people that, like I said, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, you can like this show. Like, yes, it's Star Wars, but it's not Star Wars. Like, it's the cartilage between the ribs of Star Wars that's just Star Wars enough to be Star Wars, but it's still really good content that you wouldn't even notice otherwise.
Like, and there's so many different takes on it. I mean, look, the music is its own character. I'll continue to say that, but not just that. Like, Obi-Wan had decent music, but man, this one has fantastic. I love the synth spin. Not only with the synth spin, all of the prison scenes, it was so like Stanley Kubrick-y. I mean, like, it was the shots and all the way that they portrayed the prison and all that. It's in its own space.
The prison felt very Death Star-y. Who did? Do you know who did the music? Is it Ludwig does this sound as well? I know he does Mandalorian, but I don't know what else he does.
I don't think he does this.
Okay, I'm not sure what
I'll look it up if you would talk, but I am not positive.
Yeah. Well, I just know he does. I know he does Mandalorian. I'm not sure what other Star Wars shows he does, but I know he's this young composer who's got some pretty amazing ideas and stuff. And I mean, just the score from The Mandalorian is amazing. Like, I absolutely love. You can tell right away exactly who
Yeah.
you're getting there, and I love it. I love being able to know a character as soon as I hear the first note. It's like, yep,
I love
that's it.
that behind the scenes music episode with Ludwig
Yep,
talking about that. It's
that's
so good.
that's one of the best ones. Yep.
This is done by Nicholas Bertel.
Okay.
As far as everything else that he's done, I'm not quite sure, but I know that apparently he worked and was an influencer on some of the other scores also.
Okay.
Probably more of like a collaborator. You look, I want different tones. You know, like I said this, and with our newest edition, you may disagree, but I've always said, like with the Marvel stuff, like I want different tones. I want to see something different. Give me something here, give me something there. Let me experience the full gamut of what people can create, whether it be visually or audibly. I want to know what's out there. Like I don't think The Winter Soldier is the best MCU movie, but I love the Winter Soldier theme music. I love the so much about that, and because to me, music is an actor on itself, and to
100%.
this point, this show has given us something on its own end. I mean, the synth styling music has shown that you can do a lot more than just classical. This is gonna be very stupid. My biggest complaint with this show is like the 45-second intro onto the 5-letter name of Andor.
Yeah, I always skip the intro. So after I watched it the first time, I was like, okay, I don't need to watch this again. Yeah, you're right. It is like that's
It's
very
so
slow
bad.
fading rebel symbol in the Andor. It's like, okay, I get it. I get it.
But
speak. Oh, good.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, it's phenomenal. The fact that this show does such heavy synth music is cool, but when they showed it with the scenes in this episode, I thought that it was magic.
Yeah. We talked about the soundtrack and how important it was, and the score and how important it was, like especially with like Black Adam we covered last week, and how I mentioned that like I was going to make the perfect Black Adam score with The Rock's intro music from WWE or WWF and mix it with something like some kind of electric cello or bass or some kind of orchestra symphony to sound really good. Look, I tried for like an hour the other day, man. There's nothing that goes well with that. But I'll go ahead and tell you. Oh yeah, but I'll go ahead and tell you right now, you could just play it by itself. Just cut out do you smell what The Rock is cooking at the very beginning, and just play the music, and that would be badass music for Black Adam. Just saying, it's just an awesome soundtrack.
If I could find the notes, I could probably do something with it. But
I'll be honest with you, I ain't got
time for that.
Yeah, I'm not as good mixing audio as I am mixing video. So it was definitely fun to try. But then like after a little while, I had like 6 or 7 different ones I created, and I played them, and I was like, this just sounds like 2 bands playing in the same room. Like that's all there is to it. There's just 2 bands playing in the same room. There's no
dueling
mixture or anything,
pianos.
So. Well, you got anything else about Andor?
No, man. All I could think about was what was that Pink Floyd song? Welcome to the Machine. That's all I could think about. Like when he was sent to prison, he was just making shit. It was just like all I could think about was that song.
Oh, I got one more question. What do you think they're making?
That's been going around all over the place, right?
Like I was hoping it was going to be something that, like, when you saw, like in the background, you'd see him passing something in the background fully constructed. You'd be like, I know what that is, and maybe somebody who's smarter than me does, but I couldn't tell what it was by looking at it. And I was like, man, I really hope I can figure out what they're making.
It's been rumored that they were making things for like the Death Star, but what I think is that they pit all these floors because they're supposed to be like 502D or whatever like their floor is or their specific like department is. And I think that they keep all these people separated because they're all making different things and they're all making big shit. Whether they're slave labor. I mean,
yeah,
there is no other explanation. Like they are slave labor. And so whatever it is that they're making, it could just be one part of all of these other water planet people. You know, I mean, like, there are so many prisoners and so many different levels to all of this. Lord knows what they could be making.
Yeah, White Chocolate Espresso says looks like they're making some type of gears. I agree. I just
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know what. Like, I know at this time they're collecting a shit ton of Dunium, and they're building the Death Star. You know, like, so that's I know that's going on in the background of what's happening right now.
I've heard the speculation mainly is that they were making the things that were holding the credits that they stole for Aldani, but I think that it's got to be a bigger picture than that.
Oh, yeah, okay. I guess I can see that looking at it now, but I mean, yeah, there's no way of really knowing. Maybe it'll pay off later on.
Yeah.
You'll actually see. So we'll
I
find
hope
out
it
what
does.
happens. We got what, 4 episodes left, or 2 episodes left?
4.
4? Oh, there's 12. That's right.
Yep.
Okay, so we got 4 episodes.
And then one more 12 episode season.
Cool deal. So we might get a time jump here in the next little bit. This is actually a good time to do a time jump while he's in prison. You know, you won't miss a lot of what he's doing. So
I'm fine with it being between seasons. I think I love time jumps between seasons. I think that it's a good, like, here's where we were, and like, here's where we're gonna come back to.
this is the next big important part you need to see. Everything else was just kind of, yeah, I get that. So, all right, man. Well, 4 episodes left. We'll come back with that next week. We got Bigfoot Knows Karate next week. We got man, that's it. We're gonna have to talk about Peripheral. Oh, what else?
Titan season 4 is coming back.
Oh, okay. Let me write that down. Titan season 4. So
yep, that's coming back on the 3rd.
Okay. And we do our next episode on the 4th. So yeah, we'll get to watch a little bit of it. So yeah, little sister's birthday, which by the way, she said she saw you the other day. So
oh yeah, we saw each other last weekend.
Cool deal. Always fun. Well, all right, man. Let's go ahead and get out of here. We hit that 3-hour mark. So that's the golden point. We don't even try to get to it. It always happens to be right at 3 hours. So it just works out perfectly. But Ross, they can find you here. You can find me at the BatDaddy52 on Twitter. At GCS Podcast 1 is the show handle. Check us out live every Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a share, leave a comment in the section, subscribe, thumbs up, all that good stuff that helps us beat the algorithms and start to grow. You can catch us on any podcatcher of your choice. I usually drop the audio immediately after the show is done. So in a couple hours when you wake up in the morning, if you haven't listened to this live, you'll get to hear it right now. So, but enough being said, I think we might start to do some segments on this show, maybe do a couple short snippets during the week, but we'll see. We got to see how time works out, but we're going to put some content out. It's going to be a lot more stuff coming out for the GCS podcast pretty soon. But until we get all that stuff worked out, keep pounding. We'll be back next week.
Yeah. Later,
man.